Okay, hello. Just checking my mic levels. How's it going? How's everybody doing? Good to see you. Welcome. What am I doing? Why am I here? Also, I'm watching myself here on the tablet to make sure everything's working, getting set up. A little on the late side today, but better late than never. I have my caffeine. Cheers. There we go. Okay. Oh, the video's lagging. Good 30 seconds, maybe a minute behind. I am pretty well set up today. Let's make sure I have all my accoutrements. As you can see, I'm in the midst of a war to get working tokens. Also, let me fix this camera background removal. I may just turn that off because it's A, it uses processor, and B, it doesn't look that good. So that's me. Let's see. I'm gonna mess with it. Hold on a second. Also, I think I need to re-aim this camera. Hello. A little lower. Too low. Okay. We'll keep going. Oh, yeah, it's a mess around here. I tell you, it's cluttered. I've just been so focused on code, I haven't done much in the way of hygiene, cleanliness. Forget that. Looks like my stream is excellent. That's good to see. I did hear my audio was working. Although I gotta say, this microphone should be less, I think it should be less muffled sounding or less bassy. But maybe it's just these headphones. It's all right. I can see why people who have higher pitched voices work better on YouTube and stuff. Carries it comes through better. Now let's see. Let's go to live. Boop. There. I'm just going to keep this on the side just to give myself a sense of how it's working and if it shows me any troubles. And also, I'll be able to see your chats. So thank you all for joining. Anyone who dropped by or who will drop by. Yeah, as you can see, I'm in the midst of I'll give you some background on the last where we've been. Since the last time I posted a video, I have been continuing to work with agents. Maybe I need to turn on these filters. Hold on, this is weighted. This is a trick I found. I turn on filters and then move the window out of the way. For some reason, OBS puts windows in the background always, behind itself even. I don't know why it does. Oh, I can hear fan is starting up. Oh yeah, we're serious. I can't remember what I did to make it appear before. I think I would hide OBS and then show it again or something. Make the dialogue appear. And also if you go to like this view of the screen, like the dialogues don't appear as part of that. So hide everything else except for, do I need that open? Really? There's a lot to follow when it comes to getting agents set up to be useful to do coding work. Yeah, you can have your agents.md file, but really you need something like a memory system. So as I go through all these windows, let's see, I have passwords open apparently. I have no emulator open at the moment, good. I have downloads open, won't be needing that. That. I have a terminal window, which you never know when that'll be useful. For running Bill and Ted in test mode. Whether I can use the debugger, you have to run it from the command line to be able to use the debugger. So I'm using FSUAE. Boop. So these are some of the background, what's going on today. Of course, I got my calculator out. Probably needing to do a little hex to decimal and other types of calculations. And let me see here what is going on with this bloody thing. I show settings and hide it there, and now filters pops up. So let's do this background removal on there. I don't think that that helps much any. Off. Okay. Hey, there you go. See, much cleaner. No dumb edge following me around. That'll be better. Uh, hopefully, I won't be blocking anything important. So, anywho, we'll put this away and come back to our. Oops. There we go. Put this on the side here. And what else happened? Did my face disappear? That's strange. It should still be there. Okay. That's just being weird. Hold on. Stream chat. Oh, I see. I have a stream chat behind. So that's why that needs to move. And yeah, I've been also using AI to help me with writing up a lot more Apple script stuff. So I have this stream middle resize thing. I think should move all windows out of the way. Go. That's better. And let's see, where's the stream chat? And how do I move that? Oh, I see. It's part of this. There we go. Oops. I don't know why it keeps doing that. Lock, please. There we go. Stream chat. Can I not move it? Hello? Oh, because that's locked. There we go. I'm sorry. I have obviously not been in the loop with my OBS in a while. Okay, there we go. Like I said, it's going to be a little, maybe a bit of a longer, meandering hangout today, because it's a long meandering process to get your AI sorted. Okay, and then what else is going on? I have code. Oh, there we go. Okay, I was just switching views. That's why that happened. So let's see. I guess I can turn on the YouTube chat then in this view as well. And I don't see it. Where'd it go? There it is. Oh, and it's not set up for this or something. Darn it, YouTube chat. They all need they need a special URL that you have to figure out. And I have to get it from the pop out on the video. It's so annoying. Okay, hold on, let me grab that. I have to actually do it from YouTube itself. This is why nobody likes doing a YouTube live stream. It's so much easier on Twitch. I just go. There's not all this hassle. Okay, here's YouTube Creator Studio. Go to the video. Blah, blah, blah. Go to chat. Get pop-out chat. No doubt this will all be edited for the final version. There it is. Pop-out chat. Now I have to copy the URL. I think that does it. And then if I go to OBS and paste the link, oh, of course, yes, again, OBS doesn't come forward when you choose it to come forward, even though it's on a different screen. And then its dialog is not there because I have to go and hide settings first. There. Supposedly, that'll make the chat suddenly work. There it is. Hey, magic. Okay. And then I have to some other trick with the chat, like what? Huh, I don't know what's with the formatting. What do you think? But also, they could be dark or something. Dark theme. Oh wait, it says sign in. What the heck? It should be signed in. Why isn't it signed in? Do I have to interact with it? There's a way to like interact, I keep getting as well. There it is, interact. Oh, of course, but that's going to be in a separate window that I won't be able to see. There's interaction, I guess. Now I have to sign in order to be on my own chat. This is so silly. I have no idea what's even going on. It'll let me click next, but it won't let me type into the box. That's just silly. Oh my God. This is what I'm talking about. Interact with this thing. It's very silly. Nope, there's no keyboard. That's so strange. Or is there if I like go back and come back? Nope, there's no going back. Okay, this is really silly. No idea why it's behaving this way. Get to know your OBS, people. I got a little more rest before I started this whole thing. Let's move on to the next thing we can do. I guess I can quit YouTube for one. Yeah, I don't know what this is, what the deal is with this bloody thing. Ah, there we go. I got my email typed in. Let's see how that works. Verifying it's me. Try another way. Use my password, please. See if it'll take. I have to use passwords itself, and it won't let me paste it. Is okay. Or will it? No, there's no right click. Okay, entering passwords, looking at Google. There's my password. Even if I copy it, clipboard, probably still have to type it out. Annoying. Here we are. And again, OBS will not come to front no matter what. This box I have to switch. Here we go. Now it'll. Will it let me paste? Let's see. It will not. I have to just type it. So rather annoying. Oh my gosh. There's got to be an easier way in 2026. I'm not going to even ask agents for help at this point. Oh my lord. If you're like me, you don't know any of your passwords. That's a good thing. Just have like, your keychain or whatever. Okay, next. Hey. Requires a second step. Second step is that. Get a security code. Oh, I'll be using that. I'll tap yes on my tablet. Let's try. I have to open Google. So fun. Yeah, there it is. Am I trying to sign in? So funny. Where does it say that? Just now? Give me a sec. Take but a second. Sure. What is that bloody? That's so weird that the dialogue is like, okay, I get you. All right, off we go. All right. Yes, this is me. It still hasn't asked. Hold on. I think it will if I open it a third time after I've signed in. Oh, no, it does not. Okay, wait a second here. Oh, it's the YouTube app. Hold on, I gotta open YouTube. This is so silly. Must I quit it first? Uh-huh. Do I have to sign in as a different person now? Now. What's going on? Give me a second. Resend it. Surely. There it goes. Okay. Yes, it's me. Gee. Just to get a chat. I don't know, man. Let's have me be thinky heads off. This particular profile, which of course, none of this is going to be saved with the profile. Okay, supposedly live. Here you go. Now we can see all the chatting. None of this will amount to anything because there will not be much chatting. Let's see. Or maybe there will. Who knows? Could be chats. We'll see. We will see. Um, Here it is for you. Over my head. All right. So in case you're new here, where are we at? We're at least 10 minutes or 20 minutes in, and I'm really just getting set up at this point. No worries, this is all going to be trimmed, deleted, edited out, except for maybe this last little bit. Okay. I'm not going to end the broadcast. Let's see, what else am I going to do? Okay, let's continue from where I was. So if you're not familiar with this, let me at least give you some bearings. So there's a game I wrote called Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, 1989, 1990, thereabouts, for the Amiga. Oh Lord. And so it looks like this. And there's audio associated with it and stuff that I may or may not be able to hear. But it's an Amiga game. So what do we have? It's built on a game engine with Delta animation, which you can see animating the little stars in the background, or maybe those are sprites. I've got a little text engine, scrolling, obviously. Um, we've got, again, text can draw tall with background colors. Not too much fancy here. There. So if we go to easy level, here's our, intro. This game was designed by Off the Wall Productions, and then I was hired on to translate it from the PC version to the Amiga. And some of the aesthetic choices, I admit, are very dated, if not just bad. But we had very limited colors to work with, so the rendering of these images and stuff is a little bit weak, and like things that were ripped from video or whatever, digitized, I guess the word we use. Um, Here everything is set. So yeah, there's a bit of an intro here with George Carlin. I did my best to clean this one up. I don't know, didn't come out great, but when you have 32 colors, you do the best you can. So here we are, Bill and Ted, and you move them together. They always move together. It's just one sprite. And the object of the game, of course, it's a fetch quest. You have to pick up objects, bring them to the right places, collect your dudes, bring them back to the mall, and then eventually get scored based on how many dudes you bring back. So you come in here and you can see there's a lot of Easter eggs in this game that only the developers would actually understand. For example, Kurt C.S. Wayne was the artist. Mackles at the top right there. Doug Mackle was one of the coders on the PC version. He died sadly a few years after this was made. Maybe I don't know, maybe 10 years. I don't know how long it took. But he was the guy who put me up at his apartment while I was working on this game, and it was very kind of him to show his hospitality. Jimmy Pops would be Jim Dorsman. He was one of the coders and developers of the game as well. And there you go. We're at the Circle K. So now I can go into the phone booth, and the object is to you have to know your years to go to different places. So if you know the years, you can go there. So I happen to know a few. If we go to 19, let's see, let's pick one that I can actually accomplish something in. Let's go to 1865. No, I want to say 1820. No, darn, I used to know these. I have these written down somewhere. Hold on. I have them on hand for this purpose here. Ah, there we go. So here we are. Here's our directory. You can see there are, you know, several years you need to know. And this was kind of the copy protection of the game in a way. Like if you didn't have the manual, you couldn't play the game. It was, it was what it was. So let's go to the next place, and that will be, let's start with Ice 8. Let's see, what can I pick up? I'm on the easy level, so I think the easiest place to go to start from might be Napoleon. 1805. Off we go to get Napoleon. So you go through the tubes of time, the time tubes, and you land here. Now on this level, you have a button that allows you to jump. On other levels, you won't necessarily have that control, but it's here on this level because it's part of the level you have to jump over stuff, avoid obstacles, and the cannonballs and stuff. It's all done with delta animation. Pick up the note. If you're on top of a sprite, when you press the button, it doesn't jump, it just picks them up. And if you go near Napoleon, you pick him up. And he'll follow you. And since this level, you have to do jumping, we just crowded him in with him, with Bill and Ted, so that when you jump, you all jump together. And that's why that was done that way. In case you know, a little inside scoop. And now if you fall down, you have to press the button. Because if you just press the forward, you'd be like fall and then stand up again. So I don't know why we did it that way, but could have had a pause in there or something. Anyway, you just walk over to the phone booth and voila. Excellent. Now you got him. So you could see now he's marked in yellow on the right there. You can carry up to 2 dudes in the phone booth. Any more than that, and when you go to try to enter the phone booth, they just basically disappear and you can't collect them anymore. It's kind of one of the aspects of the game that is annoying. So now that I have the note, I could go to give it to somebody who needs a note. Let's see, who would need a note? How about 1810? We'll go and see what Beethoven's up to. Beethoven. Here we go. There he is. And look, flowers. You can see I made the Made the text there really colorful. And have the color. I made it so that you can now give him something. To give him stuff, you press the space bar, and then you got this control, which is you can see him now in the object selection. And I forget what I used to select objects. Was it braces, plus, minus, something like that? Up, down. I thought it would stop Bill and Ted from moving when I'm in this selector, but apparently not. I can't remember how I did the up, down. That's strange. It might be that. Well, anyway, if I wanted to use the flowers, I would have to move down to the flowers. And it looks like I don't have key set up for that. It's really strange. Plus, plus, minus, minus. Nope, not bracket. Huh. I think that's a temp. That might just be a bug. Not sure. Well, anyway, heading return uses the object. And then we can go select him. Excellent. So now we go to 1990 to the San Dimas Mall. You can see Elvis there. The artist C.S. Wayne was pretty well known for doing like cartoon illustrations for the University of Minnesota, like, or was it Minnesota, Delaware, University of Delaware? Always get them mixed up. Delaware. So there you go. Now we have two dudes waiting for us here at the mall, along with the, let's see, the three guys in the back there. The guy on the left, that's Jim Dorsman. In the middle is Douglas Mackle, and on the right is Kurt S. Wayne. And that on the far right there is me. At the time, I had a vest and long hair, I guess. So one thing you can do is you can walk up to the phone and choose to call Missy to end the game. I'm going to say no. Continue the game. So you go and now who do I want to pick up next? How about let's go to Marie Antoinette. This one's kind of cool because I did some custom work on this, like that wasn't in the original game for the PC, and I added it a little, or maybe I did. I don't remember exactly what I did. I think it may have been there, but I tweaked it. But yeah, there's this maze, and I think I made it better uh, in various ways. But yeah, it's got this cool overhead view, and Bill and Ted are like smaller, which I think is pretty cool. I think this is the right way to go. Maybe a quicker way, but this is the way I'm choosing. Oh no, they're caught. You get caught, you get thrown out. So that's the rule. You just basically go. Don't let them see you. If you're in line of sight at all, then they catch you. That's the idea. So you just have to stay out of their line of sight, which means just basically avoiding their patrol areas. So this guy walks all the way over here, over here, over here. So as long as you don't get seen, this guy, you can basically just be right behind him pretty much, and you're fine. Off we go. Oh no, now we have to hide over here till he's there. I can go. Ah, I got caught. So yeah, it's a bit of a challenge, but eventually I'll get through this. I think I know this pretty well now. Let's try going this way instead. Right. Oh wait, that's the exit. I forgot. So yeah, I actually did make it out just then. I'm a little on the slow on the uptake here. Let me see. I may have made this easier than I realized. But yeah, you can basically just go straight to the exit. So once it gets to the exit, you can go to this door. Oops, giving it away. It's the third door, kids. And then I guess the exit is on the right. Hey, we made it. All right, excellent. Button doesn't do anything, so I was gonna try jumping around, but there we go. We got Marie. So now we just go. Let's see, who can we get next? We have some flowers. I think that means we can go get try. How about 1901? So yeah, the sprites are all done by C.S. Wayne, and graphics were all done by Wayne. I did a few tweaks here and there, maybe. I probably put that Dorfmanstrasse text there. And then we see now. How do we use this bloody thing? Darn it. It's not arrows, is it? There we go. For some reason, the arrow keys are in the joystick, of course, I forgot, are mapped to the same keys. So if I'm using command up down, it treats it as the arrow key in the simulator. There we go. So now I can do that. Hit return, boom, give the flowers to Freud's mom, and out we go. Now we've got Freud and Marie Antoinette, and we can go back to the mall, drop them off. And you can see the clock in San Dimas is not running while you're in the tubes of time, but you're on your own. All right, there we go. So we've got 4 of them, and I believe on this level you have to collect a total of 6 in order to win the levels. So who can we get next? Let's go get Socrates. How about that? And Billy the Kid. Go get those guys. So 9, 4, 10 is, I guess, BC 410, something like that. Go get Socrates. How hard could it be? There you go. So there he is. Oh, there's a penny. Let's pick that up. What's up, Socrates? Socrates says, there's no one wiser than Socrates. Something like gives you a secret question. So we got to go, and of course we're back to jumping. Oops. There we go. Ah, it's really hard. You have to know how to jump. Now, not to fall. There's not a lot of diagonal here, but it's not like a 45. What I mean is not a lot of 45-degree diagonals. Nice. Oop. And I guess the collision is with their feet, these coins. All right, off we go. And nothing to pick up here. You have to go this way. You don't think jumping matters. And off we go. Hey, no one's wiser than Socrates. What's up, Socrates? There we go. The answer is no one is wiser than Socrates. Off you go. So, yeah, I don't remember tweaking these sprites too much, maybe a little bit. All right, let's go and we have a penny. I bet we can get 1863. See what OTW is off the wall. Let's see, there we go. There's a lot of little Easter eggs here. Never give a sucker an even break. Here we go. Let's give Abe a penny. Abe, he takes a penny bribe. There you go. So off we go. Where's the exit in this room? There we go. Exits and stuff are weird in this. It's not like a Scum VM game. 1990. All right. Off we go. I think we just won. We want to, you can get bonus points, I guess, if you get more dudes. All right, we got them all. That's enough dudes. Let's call Missy. So we call Missy, and she's on the way. Here's a big old sprite. Not too bad. Sprites go. And there you go. The game. So they give a little presentation. Yay, Ludwig. You'll be glad I didn't show you the some of these levels. Michelangelo level is particularly hard. That's one of the ones that I need to fix once I recover the source code for this. So one of the main reasons I'm recovering the source code is just so I have the game engine code, mainly because I was building up a whole suite of routines on the Amiga that I was reusing, and that included, text stuff and graphic stuff and sound stuff and tracker player stuff. This doesn't have any tracker player stuff in it, as far as I know. Um, so anyway, yeah, then this is of course cracked. So, and then you can see on the bottom right, my initials are there. I guess I probably had something to do with doing this animation. I helped make this animation happen. Moving yeah, I probably did this animation in Deluxe Paint as the final thing. And you can see, pretty cool, Wild Stallions. I believe it is just a Delta animation, so, very not too fancy. But yeah, this was a fun game to write. And then, of course, it just comes back to the selection screen. So that's Bill and Ted. Now, not much to say there. Um, it was not a very fancy game as tie-in games go. Very boring, but cute. It's fun. It was, it was a fun project to work on, and I got to refine my game engine. And the stuff that I have in my other game, Dino Wars, is more interesting. Uh, the code that's in Dino Wars is probably more interesting. So I'll pull that up at some point soon. Anyway, what's up with the resize here? Hold on. Did this whole thing where I did stream middle resize. Had a chat thing up and everything. And now the chat is hidden. Where'd chat go? There it is. I want to make sure I'm not missing anyone. All you chatters. Let's go back to YouTube. All right, cool. Happy Sunday, everyone. Welcome. Call this, the beginning of the beginning. So, in order to recover these games, the first step I had to do was, of course, I have downloaded them. Obviously, I have them playable. So the first step was to do memory dumps. So I had to dump the memory out of using the emulator, using FSUAE. Once it's running in the terminal, you can uh, dump memory all day. So this is previously I guess I don't know if I can roll this. Thought this would show me the history, but yeah, like so if I'm running FSUAE, typically what you do is you just say once you're running, you can use a command like one of these S with the name of the file you want to dump, and then the memory range you want to use, or the memory start, and then the size of the memory that you're going to dump. In this case, I'm dumping 512K, starting at 0, basically all of the fast memory, I guess it's called. And out it goes. And so that gives me all the memory that contains the game and its assets, or at least the loaded assets. The assets themselves are on the disk, and originally they were loaded by reading sectors and then decoding them as zip, or unzipping them into memory in a stream-like way. And so I could easily have way more data on the disk. And then there was like delta animations, or themselves are a kind of compression, but they compress pretty well. And then, so everything was on disk compressed. Some things, maybe the assets were tied into the game, but for the most part, a lot of stuff was on disk. Some stuff was in memory. Assets were converted from deluxe paint files into basically bitplane format or whatever format we needed that was best for the game, and then we could load it directly rather than have a loader that does deconvert, that converts it, that uncompresses IFF or whatever, which we could have also done, but uh, I guess it was better to just have the assets in close to the raw form as possible. So that's not unusual for games of that era. So the way I would, do this would be I would like load the state of the game, go to this part here, and then I could hit Command D to say activate debugger, go back to the terminal, boom, here we are. And then I could do save, whatever, my whole dump.bin 0 8 0 0, and wow, that would get rid of that, would dump it. And then I would say G to go, and then go on to the next part of the game, boom, save it again until I had a large number of states, one for each level, one for each ending of the game, one for the intro, title, all that stuff. So all those things have been now brought in, and then I can load them up into Ghidra. Ghidra, I don't know where the name comes from, except one of those legendary monsters from, like, I want to say Toho Pictures, like Godzilla. So Ghidra is a Java application, and as such, it isn't super fast on the Mac, but you can get like the dev. You can actually optimize it by using like some developer kit version of Java, and it works a lot faster. But the cool thing is there is an MCP written by Lori Wired that is available as a plugin. So I actually have that enabled um, in this app. So if you go configure, you go to like, forget if it's developer plugins, yeah, and then there's the Ghidra MCP, and this gives it a little HTTP server that allows you to do certain commands with this. So it's been tested and documented, and it was created by Lori Wired, who you may know from YouTube fame, Seattle coder lass who knows her stuff and is happy to share it. Good communicator in the area of tech communicator. So in addition to being a good tech communicator, happens to occasionally do real stuff. Knows some stuff, and gives me hope for the future generations. Because I thought like I was the last generation to really care about this kind of thing, but here we are. So this is pretty cool. So once you're in Ghidra, like you basically have, here's like a memory dump, right? This is the mid travel, like while it's showing the phone booth animation going through space. So it may have, I think by this time, loaded the next level, because it's showing the animation while it's loading the level, basically, is kind of the idea, to pass the time while the level is loading. And generally speaking, they load really fast. It takes about a second at most to load a level, uh, if that, really. I mean, these Amigas weren't slow by any stretch of the imagination, maybe by today's standards, but so you have to figure out like what part of this big blob of memory is data, what part is code. And Ghidra does its best to auto-analyze it. So you can say auto-analyze, um, and you can say analyze all open or whatever you want. You can have multiple windows of this open, and in fact, I seem to have multiple open. So we could go, here's Ghidra, here's Bill and Ted. This is like tool chest. What do we got? We've got code browser, we've got debugger, we've got emulator, we've got version tracking. So you can do an emulator that actually tries to run the code and give you to help you understand what it's doing. And a debugger, similar idea, and a code browser. So I'm just going to use the code browser and open that up for no program. So as you can see, whatever, it just opens it up. I should probably open it up with something in particular. Like, it's hard to tell with Ghidra, like, is this mean this is my project? I guess it is, view project. So here we go. Here's our project. Code Amiga Ghidra Bill and Ted, and this is the actual thing. Here's the GPR file. Here's again another GPR file. This is what the agent did. So my assumption is one of these is, oops, I should probably delete and clean this up a little bit. So here's the actual folder itself, Ghidra Bill and Ted. All the stuff in here is like what we need. Then we have thing called BT Ghidra decided to use. Here's a thing called games where the actual source, now this is where the actual source code is being reconstructed. So it's figuring out all the rooms, like their data as binary, like right off the disk. Here's the Ice Age one. Like, so you can see it's not doing a great job of organizing things. This is very typical of agents. They'll drop things in the wrong places, lose track of them, get confused. You have to like ask them to, you know, go back and clean up sometimes. It's annoying, but it's one aspect of using agents. Also, depending on your model, if you're using a very cheap or free model, you may get this kind of thing more than other times. So your mileage may vary. Again, the more you spend, generally speaking, the quicker and more savvy your results will be. I am using a very cheap model called DeepSeek V4 Flash today, and it is definitely it struggles a little sometimes. It's I can imagine if I was using a more expensive model, I think I would have probably had quicker progress, but a surprising amount of progress is being made using an inexpensive or model. The least expensive right now, the least expensive model is this DeepSeek V4 Flash, in fact. So, yeah, pretty cool. So here's the Ghidra, and if I can find the GPR file, there's a GPR file. There's the folder I just created. There's the rep file that contains the project PRP file. So yeah, these are all things, and because it's open, it's locked. And here's another rep, like which rep is which rep. There's the GPR, there's the lock, like which is which. I don't know. I think this one in here is like older. You look at it, August 7, 7/12, May 11, okay, 2020. Okay, this maybe is older. But created a new one, whatever. I don't know. I'm gonna let it sort that out because, well, basically, yeah, I let the agent worry about it. I'm gonna have it go back maybe through its logs and just figure that out. Again, since it's cheap, or if I even use a free model, which I'm not going to today, but if I were to use a free model, some of those are smart enough to be able to do this kind of thing, just fixing up uh, files and things. Uh, all right. As you can see, the log file's still there. So what I would typically do is open one of these. Let's just go to mid-travel again, one of the older dumps. And Ghidra opens up, boom. Okay, so now if I say auto-analyze, here we go. It's going to look for, here's all the analyzers it will apply. A constant reference analyzer, an aggressive instruction finder, which you can enable if you want, finds valid code in undefined bytes that have not been disassembled. Should not be run unless good code has already been found. So basically, we have found good code, so this could be run to do some extras for us. And it can create analysis bookmarks. We can add Amiga library calls, which actually, I don't do any Amiga library calls. Well, there may be actually in this because of the crack. When I originally wrote these games, I wrote straight to the hardware, so much so that I even made a boot sector loader that provided the code needed to read the disk. And from that point on, didn't need any of the OS because I could read the disk. I could read and write the disk. So, and it was basically exactly the same as what the OS did. And it all fit in the boot sector. So Yeah, surprising, but it worked. So we have apply data archives. What's this? Create analysis. I don't even know what this means. Known data type archives based on program information. ASCII strings, it'll find those. Um, it looks for certain lengths, etc. Call convention ID. It tries to figure out unknown calling conventions. I don't think we even need that. Call fix up. I don't think any of those are needed per se. Condense filler bytes. Finds filler bytes between functions and collapses them. So that's fine. We can do that too. We can create address tables if we want. It looks basically at undefined data to see if it could be an address table. Then you have data references, data referenced by data. What does that mean? References to pointers, relocation, all kinds of this kind of thing. Unicode string references, well, we won't be needing those. Just ASCII, that kind of thing. Decompiler, parameter and local variables for a function using decompiler. It can take a long time, so turning that off. Of course, this is pretty small. This is 512K. It's not huge, but if you're looking at a big app like megabytes in size, written in C or something, a higher level language, yeah. Switch statements for dynamic instructions, not needed. Demangler, after a function is created, it will attempt to demangle the name and apply data types. That's fine. Yes. Disassemble entry points in newly added memory. I don't know we needed that, but we can keep it. Embedded media, PNG, well, we won't be seeing any of those. Including, yeah, nothing. Function definitions for external entry points, except raw. There's raw graphics. That's about it. Definitions for external entry points, and we don't even need to know about those. We just kind of need to know where the buffers are because we load into the same buffers for the screen and stuff over and over. Okay. Function definitions for external entry points. I don't know if we have external entry points much, but we'll leave it. Find known functions by hashing. Okay. Looks for architectures, byte patterns, starts of functions, typically pushing, parameters, loading into address registers, data registers. A little trickier on like a 6502. You'll often have like push accumulator, and that's kind of a clue that you're entering, or pull accumulator maybe. Could be the end, or vice versa, depending on what the situation is. As code is disassembled, indications that functions do not return, non-returning, right? So I don't think we have any of those, honestly. I may just leave that out. Yeah, we don't need non-returning. Data referenced by instructions, sure. Scalar operands. I don't know if that's a thing we need. Shared return calls. Converts branches to calls. Well, we don't need that. I don't want any conversions. When the destination is a function, I see. Branch looks like a call. I see. Stack. Stack variables for a function. Okay. You insist. I don't know if we need that. Either. Because the way we don't really use the stack. I use basically just register passing. That's a great thing about these old platforms is if you're writing an assembly, you just register pass like crazy. Don't worry about it. If there's an ABI associated with like the bubble you're in, like with the Amiga, it was like if you set aside, I'm going to use the hardware, you were basically in a little sandbox at that point. So that's why that would matter there. What do we got? Function definitions for code that is called. I think that's normal. And then variadic functions in the body that intersect the current selection, infer correct signatures. Okay, so there you go. Current program options or standard defaults. Like Amiga library calls, I don't know. I guess I will leave this in because it might know something about these. Just which ones would even be called? Bitmap maybe, button maybe, probably not. Probably not. Say bitmap, CIA, which I think is a type of IO. Uh, color wheel, commodities, console, data types, disk resource maybe, and DOS. It's basically just looking for DOS, it looks like, and exec. Oh, I see. Okay, these are already marked, so I think let's just leave these. Let's see. I don't think it's going to be using the bitmap library or graphics, but we'll allow it. Eh, analyze, do it. Let's see what happens. It might be done. Oh wait, no, it's not. There is a little bar behind me you can't see, but there we go. Okay. Slide that over for you. Slide on over. All right, so now that it's analyzed it, we have some data. We have all the defined data, and we can just kind of follow these, decide what these things are. But now it's got some things marked in red. I mean, basically everything below uh, the, I think in the first, well, below the game is basically nothing. Now, as I'm looking at it, I don't know if I've changed much. Um, but you can see here's like Bill, Ted, quite simple. So we have strings. You have flunked every section of this history class. And we have new lines, tabs, standard characters. Then I also have these like um, change the foreground color F, change the background color with B, position with X and Y. So yeah, I have that kind of thing in there, which is nice. Just makes the strings easier to manage. You don't have to be like position and then go. You can just put in the string. Change the color and then print. No, just put in the string. Since they're only really drawn once and then um, that becomes a bitmap, it's like it doesn't really end up being a big bottleneck. Repositioning, blah, blah, redrawing, repositioning, redrawing, changing color, redrawing. None of that has to happen. If I was doing a lot of repetitive redrawing, I'd probably just turn them into a sprite and then redraw with the sprite. And that's another thing I need to add. I didn't really have that facility in my engine. Like draw graphics into memory and then turn that into a sprite. Which these days, like uh, when you think about it, like you can make so many more assets that way, and a lot of people love to experiment with that. I would have a lot of fun with it, I'm sure. So looking it over, we see it did bring in DOS library, but did it actually, is anything actually calling it? I don't know. Is anybody actually calling this, calling any of these? So we can look through and see whether or not they were. I can decide to keep this or not. As I'm looking through, not seeing a lot of code where I was expecting to see code. So that's kind of a little bit weird. But to be frank, the game code is not very big. Um, the actual game engine. So I think these things, these data structures of particular sizes, it would be nice to have these defined. Like what are the data types and how are they used in each of these? Like you can see this is pointing to some data. So it knows that. It doesn't know what this is. Is this a byte? Is it a word? Is it a long word? I have to basically have it try to figure these things out. But if I knew this, once I know the structures, once they've been analyzed by, say, Hermes, it can assign things to this. Thing is, I don't know how much control that the MCP gives over Ghidra to the. Does it give it enough control to be able to have it define structures and then make each of these be one of those structures? No, I don't think you can do that from the MCP. So I'm looking to maybe extend the MCP once I get the hang of it. So these are actually also part of the string. So let's just make that. So one of the things you can do here is you can say data type is string. Oh, now that I've done that, for any future ones, I can say, oh, while it's a string, I can say y. I can just hit the y key, and now it's marking that as a string. Right, here's another one. So I can just do that with all the strings that I find for now. And then if I switch to a different data type, I'll have to, here's another one. And there's a 10. So some of them end with a new line, I guess. And some of them end with a 0. Those are both permissible, I guess, as endings. Or they just mark like in between string markers. You can see, I'm Bill S. Preston, and I'm Cynthia. Welcome to the history report. Okay, so yeah, so actually 0 is there, and then welcome to our history report is a new string, but it just doesn't have an address marker on it. So I assume it's like running through and like being like, print the string, in a loop, this many strings, one after the other. So anyway, this is now going to be, part of that. So again, as I go through cleaning up, like you can see these are going to be back to top. This has to be data of some kind. Right? Can't be code. So what kind of data? We don't know. So one way you deal with it is just to mark it as bytes or mark it as unknown or whatever types of data. You say data. You can say string, but I'm just going to call it I want to say unknown, but that's not one of the options, is it? Call it a byte. Right, but it's not. So I'll just undo. Until we know like what it is, it's better not to mark it. But basically, this is the process. You go through all your code, uh, all your data, you mark it off, you figure out what's a string, what's a data. So here's all these are now Dr. Sigmund Freud. So you can change the names of labels to make them simpler. Say edit label with L. So I can just click on that, hit the letter L, and voila. Although it would be nice if it instead had the label already pre-typed for me. Like I would call this. Copy that and then paste it instead. Boom. Or there may be that you can just do this and edit it directly in the source. Nope, it doesn't let you do that. Darn it. Don't know why. Kind of cool. But no. Yeah, and again, best you can do is copy, paste, I guess. So copy that, L, paste it in, okay. Copy this, L, paste it in, okay. Over and over until you're happy. Nice to have the little addresses on these and stuff, but again, like, I don't think exclamation point is going to end up being like something I could legally use in source code. So you want to have these be, something nice close to what you're looking for in terms of the final label you want to see in the recovered source code. So again, I think these are pointers to, like if we go to this data, here's the data, 0BE, what is it? I don't know. This looks like, as you follow it, you kind of try to find pointers to stuff around it. Some of these data structures these data may be loaded, and then this could just be sprite data. And it's in that table now because when we loaded the level, that sprite got loaded and the data got loaded. So none of these are things that are like necessarily buffer addresses written in stone. These are just the areas that we chose to load into. The thing about fast memory is that only the CPU accesses it, so it's faster to run code in the fast memory. And graphics memory is, chip memory. Some of the chips get access to that, so the processor can't access it while the chips are accessing it. It's DMA and so on. That's kind of what that's about. Then there's this padding here, as you can see. I think here I would just say, make that string. Oh, nope. I forgot. String, boom. And then you just say, now I can use Y. But it treats that as, oh, wait a minute, it's a pointer to the string. Wait a minute, what is this? Oh, it's the address of that one. Darn it. Yeah, obviously, I need to give this a better name. Well, boys, I knew you couldn't do it. All right, let's call this S. Fail. Call that S end fail. And, as you read these through, you can kind of see S end win. And maybe I'll just call it 2, because it almost seems like, but once you get the idea, you get what everything is, you're all good. Down here, clearly some kind of code. What does it do? Let's try and figure it out. Move a word, this number, 131, into D0W. Subtract, oh, look out, whatever's in A0. So this receives A0 something, and subtract the 30th offset from A0 from that, then move it into up the 38th offset from D0. So this is like math. Looks like some kind of pointer math, maybe. Well, it's a word. Move word number 9F. Okay, interesting number. 159. And then move number 1C, offset 1C. Okay, so this is a little bit near this other one here. D1. Oh, we're shifting it right, which means divide by 2. We're subtracting, and then we're moving. So why are we doing all these things? I don't really know. And then func back to top. Very interesting. I'll have to look into this one. All right, I'm going to pause here and take a momentary break and come back refreshed for the next round. So give me a minute here. I'll just leave you to ponder while I start my agent on the next phase of this deconstruction, and you can kind of see where it's going. So basically, you can see that right now it's looking for these indicators all over the place. It's doing its best to find indicators. And I'll mention that Ghidra is running with an unsaved. I may just close it, actually, just to make it less complicated. Should I save? I'm going to not save. I just wanted to demo this for you guys. So let's not save for the moment, and we'll let it continue on its merry way. So these things like H10 data blocks, it's giving itself its own little like task list. So that's like section H number 10, I guess. And it's figuring out, right now, it's figuring out the data, figuring out what's code, bringing things together. And I'm going to ask it, after it's done with this, I'll ask it to clean up the project a little bit and consolidate all the notes and make sure that everything is up to date and consistent and where we're at. But you can see now it's figured out the Michelangelo dude state machine. which is one of the more complicated levels. It's got like sprites that fall and jumping and other things. There's no real chase logic. Uh, it's really one of the most terrible levels ever written in a game. Honestly, it's just you'll eventually win, but you have to keep trying over and over and over, and just accept the fact that you will fail over and over. It's just an exercise in frustration. But some say that the original painting of the Sistine Chapel ceiling was nothing but an exercise in frustration. So now you know how Michelangelo felt. So yep, it's figuring things out, figuring things out. And again, by having lists and having tests and the fact that it can build and compare against something, like if I was building this afresh and it didn't have some, final version of the binary that it could compare against and say, oh, this instruction is wrong, therefore I need to change it. Like, didn't have all that, like, it would probably be nigh impossible. But because it does have that, the agent is able to make those kinds of like very definitive comparisons. And that's what's needed. I've been finding that's where I have the best luck, honestly. So anyway, momentary break. I will be back, and I gotta recharge this microphone probably anyway. They wanna... There you go. They live right next door. It's not like they don't know my address. What's your apartment number? I don't know. Just go outside and look, man. It's right there. It's on the door. All right, here we go. Hey, look at this. It made it through without getting bogged down. All right, so what we are doing, we are doing rival handler table. All right, good. Now, arrival, of course, means arrival at a room that you have just traveled in the phone booth to arrive at. So that's the A2. Those are the A numbers, I guess. Um, and verify 132 out of 132 regions are good. 12 out of 12 sources are exact. Cool. Let's take a look at the sources. I'll show you. They're not nearly at the final stage yet. I believe I'm looking at Hermes. Here we go. So like here's a level loader. You can see I'm decided to use really a nice, really unreadable font. Um, it's just like an Amiga font for fun. But the idea is it keeps the addresses on every line so that you can use them for verification even after it's gone through. Later I'll have them clean. I'll clean all that up, remove it, because it doesn't matter. The original location of certain routines in memory, the original implementation was just haphazard. Certain data structures were in between, and they would just, the idea was generally put data structures close to the code. Um, it just saved a little bit in like one instruction. Like you could use a load effective address with an offset, and rather than have to have the whole address in there, which would be 16 bytes instead of 32 or whatever. It was just one of those things that you would do. But anyway, I don't know why exactly it's decided to do this, but I'm allowing it. I'm allowing it. The make file can specify an address for a particular source file. So that's one thing you can do if you want something to build at a particular address for verification purposes. In this case, verifying against the binary. So yeah, and it's gone so far. It's done a pretty good job. Arrival handlers. It's got all these arrival handlers. I guess these are, again, there's data here which isn't necessarily fully understood yet. Move object by velocity. We're coming up with names based on, I mean, the AI is coming up with all these names. Like it knows read joystick. So, we look at where that's actually used. It does a branch subroutine read joystick, right? So how does that work? I don't really know. I'll have to look into that. But I believe it would be just by the offset amount or something. I don't know. RPAD, read joystick, 131D, 166, 514. So it looks like it should be a subroutine here. There isn't anything. I don't know exactly what. I'll have to look into it, but it apparently all builds. Came up with game equates for me. So again, I'll be renaming a lot of these. I'll be cleaning them up. This is a much better starting point than just the binary. Obviously, it's actually building up things that really do work. Magic Tig actually is just the string, like the character string TIGG, which was my girlfriend's nickname, Tigger, at the time. Um, I miss my Tigger. He was one of the cooler people I ever knew in the day. Probably why I dated her. Um, and she dated me because we liked each other, right? We actually liked each other. Remember back in the day, we date people just because you liked them. So simple enough. Anyway, so that's what those are basically. I don't know why they need to be equates. They probably don't. So once I get to cleaning up the code, like I'm going to be shocked how little there really is. And that's the thing. Like I've gotten so used to since like 1990 having these big code bases like Marlin that when this is all done, I'm going to be like, this is nothing. This is nothing. This is simple. I understand this. Uh, I know a lot, and this is all handwritten back in the day, including like the data structures. I would have to enter all what's the width and height, blah blah blah, all that stuff. Or maybe I would generate it from some asset files or something. In general, you would do this, and there wasn't like scripting languages. Like you couldn't whip out a script to do something. You have to write a little piece of code to do the thing that file wrote it. Maybe you'd write it in. I don't even remember what I would write it in back in the day. I feel like if you were on the Amiga, you were on the Amiga. So you just basically had to work with what you had. And I don't think I would necessarily have written stuff in BASIC, but I must have. I must have written a few things that were like scripts to convert assets or something. Or maybe it was like, I remember the team I was working with also, they would do a lot of the asset conversion for me and just give it to me. I was like, oh, I would be like, you. So I'll take them. So anyway, any changes I make are going to end up being committed, so on. This thing is making frequent commits as it goes, which I asked it to do. But you can see, like, here it is, dial clear HLQSE are all the keys that you can use. I don't know why these are long. Oh, and these are where the keys take you. So H is a backspace, actually, as I recall, it's actually backslash H. Maybe the letter H does clear something. I don't know. I haven't really tried it. Quit Q is so if you want to quit the game, you can actually go into the phone booth and hit Q. And then you have save, and you can save the game and load the game from the phone booth. Well, and it basically writes to your game disk. That was how we did it back in the day. So hopefully not part of the game disk where game was. We try to avoid that. So then you had dial backspace, and that's delete one. Cool. And then there was like how many digits and so on have you typed in. And anyway, and I don't know what the 4 is for. Maybe the little digits are done, and then it says good to go. But yeah, all these routines would be so low level back in the day. Check a key, count number of keys. So here it'd be like a place where I would put in a double backslash, maybe accept that. I don't know if that works. Same here, double backslash. I don't know if that works. Hope it does. That'll clean things up a bit. I haven't checked out how to build this yet. There is a make file, so I can just type make. So of course it built that for us as well. It's good to have a make file. Uh, Basically everything in this folder that is stuff that it built for, that it put together in its quest to pull apart my source. So I'm really trusting the agents on this stuff a lot. Which again, it's not, again, not mission critical. This is a real this is a sleuthing effort. This is a forensic effort. So is it good at forensics? Well, turns out that DeepSeek V4 Flash, the latest version, is pretty good with forensics. Yes, you can do forensics so far. Now, here's different dumps. 11, 8, 9, 10, 11 are the only I cared about. I don't know where these are used. Um, let's see, it's doing an extract thing here. Maybe I should have it like review and clean up and expand on and finish a lot of these. Like this probably should, well, it does have all the dumps. It has up to 8, it has the first 8 dumps. So that's the make extract and make verify. Um, I'll ask it if it can do make extract and make verify on the. Okay, so it's done this. It's done this stuff. Where this leaves the split you mentioned, the travel subsystem now reconstituted, et cetera, et cetera. Next, the boot main chain, then asset extraction. Okay, and I'll just tell it at this point, make sure our plan skills, wiki, etc. are plan, yeah, up to date with our current progress, and then pause and then hold. So I can start a fresh session. And this will be putting through, right now with this model is free hashed tokens. So if I'm repeating within this, it's actually cheaper sometimes to just use within the same conversation rather than start a new one or have it even do a compression. Because if it compresses, then it has to wait for the output of an entire conversation being re-output, basically. That's a lot of output tokens. Sometimes it's better to just let it do a quick addition to its summary, and I'll start a new session. But I do want to have it shift gears on this new session, fix up the make file with the rest of the dumps. VASM does not unescape backslash in strings recorded. Yeah, that's the thing that it recorded earlier. It's not mentioning it now. The green stuff is what it's adding. And we sure do have a lot of stuff. Nero, like all these addresses and everything that it's holding on to. It's useful anchor points for its work, but at the end, none of it's going to matter. Also, it'll be able to forget all of it. But I guess if we're going to build we want to have a final version that builds to the same result as the game, including like making a disk that is bootable and playable, including the Skid Row crack, unfortunately, until I get original disk, and then I can build. Once I have all of that, then I can build the original disk. So I do have the original disks for Dino Wars, so I'm going to be able to use the boot sector stuff on that, which actually is the same boot sector stuff. Basically, I ship them around the same time, so there should be very little difference between boot sector stuff and those, and there's other game engine aspects that they share. So focusing entirely on the one game has been useful for this session to build up these skills. I'm going to have to basically have the agent, or maybe effectively another agent, rip apart the skills that have been built here and generalize them more towards any game. Different games are going to work in different ways, obviously. The Amiga, there is no one standard per se. Like if you made a game that was friendly and didn't take over the hardware like mine, mine were very unfriendly. They basically you didn't need Workbench, you just needed Kickstart, and then didn't touch the Kickstart code at all. Pretty much, it just booted right up. And I think there's something with the A7 register that I noticed. It's like some ABI stuff with that. It handles all of that stuff just as if it was a Workbench booting. taking over the entire machine. Pretty cool. Everything's up to date. You can't really do that now. It'd be interesting to have something that you could do that with, though, like a stick that you would boot up, and it's like, well, I guess it is effectively that. If you boot up, say, a small Linux on a Mac from a USB stick and then play a game, you're effectively doing the same. Uh, Kicking out everything except for what it needs for the game. And generally speaking, a small Linux is pretty much what you need these days. Arrival handler, table complete, or some kind of like low-level emulator, something like that. Games repo, Bill and Ted, so clean. Arrival handler is complete. Michelangelo, rescue dude, Genghis. Verify regions. Okay, Constitution, 12 source table. So I guess it's using scripts. So I'm going to just start a new session. I'm going to ask it about those. The makefile does only some of the dumps it uses. Only some of the dumps. Should the rest be added? And then also, are others, is there overlap with other script, with the project scripts? Call them utility scripts, I guess. Our project utility and test scripts, so they'll know what I mean, basically. And I'll just ask that. Now, I haven't invoked any skills or anything at this point. This one agent, it only has one purpose. So everything in its memory, everything in its knowledge and experience is all, and it includes hindsight memory I have for it. Again, not the easiest thing to always deal with, but it's accumulating stuff. That much is absolutely clear. It's accumulated all these bits of information. The big wiki restructure commit was deferred. Okay, we didn't really need, like, a lot of this stuff is like just historical world information. What I really wanted to do is, like, it's taking in all this world information, and I think it really needs to distill it at some point. I haven't set that up, and that's a big part of making a memory system better, is having it build up its experiences and so on. So I really need to maybe turn that stuff. Like, here's its experience. Look, it does have that. It does have, like, by default it has experiences and observations. So I guess I should. Object handlers unit is fully verified. Okay, so it does have information about these things. Cool. Let's see what this big node is. Observation. Okay, that's like the central node that connects everything. Here's another one. Another big central node. Was that the same? I can't seem to get this to stop zooming away. Stop doing that. Why are you doing that? They zoomed. They cut it out. I don't know. I'm sorry. This is just some quirk of this tool. Anyway, Amiga toolchain documents emulators, Ghidra. There is a file that's been thrown in to document it in the wiki and so on. Yeah, so there's all kinds of information about it. So right now, my fan is really flying. Even though it's not really doing much. Oh, it's probably running the memory system. I just have it using Olama to store the memories. Small model, some small coin model. 9B probably, 0.39B, 3.59B probably. I'll probably switch over to using OMLX at some point soon. Not hard to set up. And then I've got a few models that are pretty snappy. They don't think too much. really just kind of have to. It's one thing I haven't looked too closely at. I don't worry much about which memory model I'm using because they don't have to be that bright, but I don't want them to be insane, obviously. Um, okay, let's see the full picture. Verify target, extract target. So of 34 dumps, the build touches those and the room scripts. Now, should the rest be added? No. Code regions are byte identical across all dumps. The only live globals differ by game state. Each source verifies against the one dump whose state matches its declared data, which is deliberate per source documented in the skill. Adding 30 more dumps to make verify would rerun 12 assemblies for every dump with 0 new signal. Okay. State-dependent data regions. Oh, I see. There's state-dependent stuff. You want belt and suspenders. I guess what I'm looking for is useful to verify. Let's see, what is the file it's using? Called go here. It's a FSUAE file. Let's ask it. So it should be an ADF file, basically. And it'll think. So this is, again, DeepSeek V4 Flash is, it thinks. I don't tell it to think too much less because it's pretty, it doesn't go into big, long circles usually. Sometimes if it's looking at code or something, or if I've given it conflicting instructions in a long session, it will go back and forth a lot. But wait. But as long as you don't bog it down, it seems to do okay. So yeah, I'm thinking basically the smaller the sessions I do with this, and the shorter they are, the better the results are. But frankly, really, even with longer sessions, I'm compressing at about 50%, so longer sessions aren't too bad. I've had very good luck, honestly, in this model. Hey, who's dropping by? Let's see. Slobodan, yeah. I do still work on Marlin. In fact, last couple days I've been cranking on Marlin to get things ready for the 2.13 release. If you're curious. I wanted to make sure we had our last minute bug fixes in. I wanted to run some tests on my own printer, of course, with the latest motion system options. The new motion system is pretty incredible. It's got some new, it's got constant acceleration is one of its new modes of movement. Yeah, there's all kinds of cool stuff going on. And I'm not using agents all over the place with the code of Marlin. I'm using it for helper stuff for my process and things. But in general, everything that goes into Marlin is verified and checked by humans and doesn't go in unless we like it. We probably also want to rewrite it because we don't necessarily like the way agents write things, and it hasn't gotten good at imitating our style. Hopefully, it never will. So yeah, in general, only it's going to be a few years before they get to the point I think that they're really that trustworthy to let onto such a big code base. All that said, like if you're taking code and translating, or adding to, or you have a good spec, it's all rewritten, it's all written out well. Um, like you can get quite far. You can get agents to do a lot of cool things. So I'm looking at experimenting with a rewrite, but that'll be like build the core, really test the shit out of that core, motion system and all the other components and APIs, really make them nicely defined, make them pretty for humans, but also looking at the future, we do also have to make things a little bit nicer for agents. Um, but that really just means doing things better than we would have before. Like we'd use a lot of short variable names because, in some like small function off on the side, like you don't really care about, you know, one variable you use once and then throw away. But for agents, it can help. It can help it to just, even though in context it may know that A is this particular thing, give it a slightly better name, and it just helps reduce ambiguity to some extent. Also, it is weird though. Certain names might like throw it off. You just don't know. Like if you say banana, now it's going to be thinking about banana. Like even though the variable banana had nothing to do with anything in your code, now it's like for some reason it wants to bring in something related to banana. But you really have to kind of like understand these machines are a little bit psychotic and just deal with whatever. And so what is it doing right now? It's trying to do ATF extract. Interesting. Or SKR variants. I think it's gotten stuck. Can't really tell. So yeah, the thing about Marlin is it's like I don't get as much opportunity to like um, get really nerdy with it as I would like. There's some I don't get as low level. We're at such a higher level now. We fix the low level stuff now. Let's polish all this like UI, and so it's almost like at this point it's getting into like the UI and user experience thing. So it's more closer to a web design job in a um, which on a certain level is good. We have a good solid core. Um, we can still do tweaks to it to make it more um, performant or smooth or whatever. But really, the new motion system, fixed time motion system, it's got some great aspects. I'm going to actually break this. Well, it'll stop after another 20 seconds. There's a 5-minute limit on running stuff. So I could just let it time out rather than break it and let it deal with its own timeout, understanding that it is a timeout. 2-1-0. Let's do it. Okay, should be timed out now. Come on. No, it's not going to go 6 minutes, is it? All right, well, I will. I'm going to break it then. We'll see. Um, let's see if it figures out what happened. Now, hitting Control C doesn't necessarily stop the agent, it just stops the running background, which I could have maybe just said /stop instead. So it may actually be stopped now. Yeah, I guess it is because this timer would be continuing to count up if it wasn't. So we'll say stuck in a loop. And on it goes to try and solve it. Yeah. So really, most commands you expect to be a couple seconds at most. So just slow. Wow, it runs the emulator decode on every PK candidate finds, each capped at 2 megabytes, then 8 million emulated instructions in pure Python. Oh my lord. That's crazy. Here's the thing is, why is it emulating? This is one of the things that it did, and I let it do it, is I have an LZH extractor. Okay, it's basically an unzip. And I wrote it based on 386 code. So they gave me the off the wall productions dudes. handed me this code, and they were like, "This is the 386 code to do an unzip and turn it into 68,000 code." And so I tweaked it, and then I optimized it here and there and made it a little, I thought, better. And it probably is. There's some instructions you can use that are a little quicker than others, so I just went for all the quicker instructions and techniques and so that I could think of. So we have this routine. So, and I was like, well, you want to implement that routine so we can use it to decode assets, and then you know, then we'll have the raw assets, baby. So it was like, sure, and it, I had to write out how does the algorithm work at the top and everything, and okay, this is where it gets weird. So then it decided to emulate to create it by writing it as an emulation of the 68,000 itself. Um, so that's pretty weird. So it runs LZH decompress on each, right? Um, and I think that I did tell it that the LZH was a certain format. I think it was PKZip was the original one. So it should have been able to do it, no problem. I don't know, now that I'm looking at this, I don't see the actual emulated part. So that's maybe good. But it may have stuck it somewhere at the top here. Run LZH. Yes, so let's look at run LZH. Is this the emulated part? No, that's not emulated either. Okay. Oh wait, here it is. M68K emulator. Import MK68 emulator. So here's the emulator it wrote. Yeah. It wrote this whole emulator of 68K, which is just insane. But again, if you did this with, say, Fable or something, it would have cost so much. DeepSeek V4 Flash was able to do this, and it works. So I, I let it, it was like, because I was like, well, isn't this crazy waste of time? It's like, no, I'm close. Every time you try to stop it, it's like, no, 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 it's getting there. I just have one more test to run. So it did went through that a few times. So eventually it did finally work. And I'm like, okay, well, great. So this is just handling an operand, like these are all the instructions, your branch instructions, all your registers. Yeah. And then I don't know what it's doing with all the others, like load accumulate, load into address register and so on. Um, again, you're only emulating a thing that manipulates memory, so it's not like you care. Like it's not like you don't have to emulate the hardware of the Amiga. You just emulate this stuff, and voila, it's just so that's what it decided to do. I'm like, okay, it's fine. I had no idea that it was, it's doing it this way, which is just insane. So is it? Do I let it? Oh, okay, it's waiting for it to finish, so it's gonna go ahead and finish. So there you go. It's gonna run it as an emulator, and that's just the way we're dealing with it. I wanted it to, really wanted it to write in just as a Python. It should have done so like relatively easily. I mean, the algorithm is not hard for zip. It's just tedious. You have to first you have to load your translation table so you know what the bits correspond to, and then you just do your thing. And if there's more tables, you just you just do that. You deal with more tables, um, more sections or whatever. But I think these are all one section, one table. They all have their own table, and that's it. The most common result is probably zero number. It's either zero or FF, or 255 are the two most common values, and the rest are just whatever at varying levels of randomness depending on the image. Okay, still chewing. So RLE would almost work just as well for some of these things, because the bits that are done for drawing, like, yeah, if you have like a regular patterns, which you often do in images, then you'll have you'll have higher numbers of certain values. So that's the whole key, though. All right, still running at 256. Tail buffers extraction is doing its thing. It says estimated 10 minutes. So pretty good. And now it looks like it's giving me a summary here. Still chewing, yes, it's the best verification. Source, disk is the only place that it exists. What the disk actually is points at, oh, I see the actual disk. I see the ADF file, right? Standard DOS structures are damaged. XDF tool refuses to list it, but raw scanning, that's fine. Well, I know that there are no DOS structures. Or there shouldn't be. It's cool. It's interesting. I mean, it may be that what they did was just change the boot sectors and then did some patches, calling a patcher, and then ran the game. So it may be that the game data on the disk itself is not patched. It's simply patched once it loads into memory. It'd be cool. Then we actually do have a lot of the original, all the original game data and all the original code unpatched on the disk. It'd be really neat. I would rather it work that way. I'll have to check and ask, or I could just check. I actually, one of the things that it disassembled for us was, in fact, the patcher. So this is the patcher itself. You can see this is Skid Row or whatever made this to make the game run uh, on other hardware besides the one like those that it was originally written for. Yeah, that was the other thing I should mention is because I wrote the game to the hardware, it's like if you ran on faster hardware, the game just runs faster. So, and that means that if there's hardware routines that depend on timing, then they could break. And there's all kinds of other things that could break. So yeah, and basically, just not writing the hardware was okay in the early days of the Amiga, but then later on, it like as a platform matures, that becomes less and less okay. So you need to have, yeah, you can write to the hardware during certain times for certain things, but basically it has to put barriers around it so that nothing else is accessing the hardware at the same time. And that can be very tricky in an OS situation because all kinds of background processors are running. And so anywho, yeah, so you can see jump tables for drawing. They don't have names yet, they're just addresses. um, like I don't know what this is exactly. It may be drawing some things. This is what I named it because it looked like it was drawing because it's splitting. Just named these like split a bunch, low level blit A5, so that I could kind of follow what's going on, but I didn't necessarily know what each of these things is really doing. Um, and then there's, blit executors. I assume these are like drawing functions that pick the effective address of what's to be drawn, then call a blit executor A6, and then it picks out things off from that address or whatever. And then here we have some number that's going to be hardware based or whatever. And then you can see I'm moving whatever A5 points to as to the pointer at that address into A5, and then I JSR the address pointed to by A5. And then also I'm grabbing two things off the stack into A6 and A5 and returning, which is interesting. So that the next thing there, so my guess is it's almost like a linked list almost kind of thing, where it's like, oh yeah, get the thing off the stack, the other thing off the stack. There's two more things on the stack here. You can see this obviously was being, this is called a push here. So push to this onto the stack, then pull back off. So A6 is just being preserved, and A5 is the thing being changed. So what's interesting though is that when we come back, we like push A5, onto the stack. Then we change it. Then we run this thing. So it's being pushed over and over. So I don't know what's going on. I guess it's being pulled at the end. Oh, I see what you're doing. That's rather weird, but yeah, basically whatever was in there before it did this is restored when it comes back. And it's pushing it again, pushing it again, pushing it again. This is really silly because it only has to push it once at the top. Then do this, then do this, then do this. And don't do this until the last thing. You just, yeah, it's very funny. I don't know why it's doing it that way. I could see ways of optimizing this, but hackers, man, it's the way they chose to do it. They probably just picked up some hacking code and rehacked it. What's interesting is, yeah, I gather what it's sort of doing is it's doing some blitz. I do believe this is actually part of the boot sector stuff. Could be wrong, but also where it loads in memory can give you some idea. 188.04 is where it starts, I guess, or 12898, yeah, in that area. Yeah, fascinating stuff. So yeah, of course, I don't remember writing any of this kind of stuff back in the day, but I imagine this being a patcher, I feel like some of this patcher is a patch, and some of it is just me, my stuff. But that's probably word. That's probably a word. Probably a word. That's probably long. That's probably a word. That's probably like as I look at these, I'm like, these data pieces can't all just be bytes. There's got to be something interesting in here that's like structured. That's one of the things that this is supposed to be better at is like identifying, or at least Ghidra is supposed to be better at identifying the structures and then bringing them in. Okay, so very good. Code verification. One forensic note. A3's loses streams. Okay. Okay, so at this point, still doing the decode. How far have we gotten? Extraction, continuing. So we said it was going to take about 10 minutes. Then now we see that the plain disks lose LOSE while decodes to that and the two outputs differ with 60% of bytes changed. That's interesting. Oh, this is a lose screen? The stale header CRC? Oh, interesting. Well, this stuff should match what we get from memory because we're running out of memory. It could be that that the crack modifies the memory before I then saved it. Or maybe there may be delta animation that then overwrites the data, and so it's not seeing the original data ever. I'll have to check. The archive holds no code. The game binary lives elsewhere. So the no new code ground truth. Good. One more check. Which disk did the RAM dumps come from? Very cool. No contiguous. The end loss capture doesn't hold the bitmap in raw form. One last independent proof attempt. Win versus end one. Cool. So picking assets, Wild Stallion animation should be there. And it's working that out in this big long thought train. For that, it's got our level data. Per room RAM dumps. Okay, and eventually we're gonna be like, what, we'll have the raw and we'll have the compressed. We don't really need the data, but we'll have the raw data at least, and then we can sort of figure out from that how to convert them back from, say, bitplane, hourly compressed bitplanes into, say, BMP files. or maybe some other format. But BMP files seem good to me. Ah, right. So put on a little light in here. Put on a little light. Get a little light on the situation. I have this nice light that comes in from the window, but it's overwhelming sometimes. Okay, so win partial 4,699 byte match in Dump Wild Stallions. Now let me land everything, move the non-room files, etc., etc. And I can mention to it that Delta Animations can modify graphics once they've been loaded. So if I were to hit the debugger at just the right moment before it starts animating, I could maybe catch. I could lower. I could do something like stop, set the emulator to run really slow, and just wait for the loading to finish, then be like, there you go. Or really, just after I hear the disk sound, but before it appears, could possibly be a good moment. Um, oh, I don't think I saved it at the moment with the windscreen. I'll go back and see. Could have. Okay, now. Oh, crap. Okay. Plenty of headroom, so no trimming needed. We do hit these limits a lot. What's left? So I didn't just want to tell it to continue, but it should have not quite finished the last thing it was trying to do. One quick check around the handoff list, get status of the workspace. Good. That was one of the things I did try to remind it of, was keep frequent commits. Also, it mentioned Grease Weasel, which you may have heard mentioned in other forums related to the Amiga. It's other retro forums. It's a good way to get your discs ripped, and then you can do whatever you want. I was thinking, actually, I should just get an Amiga if I'm gonna. If the whole point is just to rip a disc, first I need to. I don't have a floppy disk reader for starts, so what's the easiest way to get one of those? Well, maybe I'd want to get them. They do need to be restored generally. When you get them, you fix them up, you restore them, replace the grease, clean up the wiring, maybe replace some capacitors, and then you have a nice working drive. But what's the point of if I just get that and then use it once? I should just get an Amiga and then I can rip the disc using the Amiga. I don't need Grease Weasel. Do it. I can just get the the add-ons for the Amiga that make it modern and go from there. So that might be what I'll do. Just look for an A500, which I really liked. I liked the A500. The A1000 was a great machine. Don't get me wrong. I liked it a lot, but it's a big old box. It's clunky. Also, the plastic chips and cracks, and it's like it ends up being just a big ugly thing. But I don't know, if I had one, man, it would be my big ugly thing. So I don't know. My something to consider. Okay. Immediate loose ends. Commit the workspace. Make extract run. Let me see if I can do one quick dump. Right now, the hindsight server is down. That's one of the things, is when I want to use the memory. They just come up when they want. It comes up when it wants to. It goes away when it wants to. I'm not even going to worry about it anymore. So here we are. We're running Bill and Ted again. And then we're going to hit F12 and load it again. Here. And here we have 4 dudes. So I got to go collect 2 more dudes. Let's see. Which dudes did I find easiest to get last time? Marie Antoinette. She wasn't too hard. Go get her. Never remember the dates. Preview. Should have it. There we go. Let's see. Okay. Oh, we're at 1790. Oh. Whoa. All right. And I'll just save it at the point where here we really just have to fly straight across. I think on the harder level, I added a wall. You can't just fly straight across. The wall over here, so you can't go through this wall. And that's the only difference. Easy and hard version of the maze. Go the long way around. See? This game is kind of fun, actually. I had a lot of fun making it. Even though it's very primitive and kind of like silly. Okay, who else can we get? Napoleon, I think we already got. Now we need, let's see, Billy the Kid, we got Beethoven. Let's see, he needed a note, which we didn't get. Guess I can go and get, I'm not going to get Michael. Did I get Freud? I got Freud, so I'm surprised I didn't get Beethoven. Did I get, I didn't get Beethoven. All right, let's go to get, um, we get Napoleon. What the heck? Napoleon it is. Couldn't be easier. And these Delta animations are a lot of fun. All those cannonballs are. And then I think those might be those craters might be sprites, but I think they're just part of the Delta animation. Got them. That waving flag is definitely a Delta animation. Yeah, I'm thinking these are like sprites actually, because I can bump into them. I don't think I made them into like any other type of. Boom. All right. What a year it was, 1990. This is time travel itself, just playing this game. All right, we got all our dudes. Now we can save state. There, that's the winning state. Now we can go in, call Missy. Yes, she's on the way. And there she is, Missy. 5, 6, 7. Good, we got 6 dudes. All in the car, apparently. And then there's a LEN presentation. Hello, Sandimas. So, be a good place to activate the debugger for this before anything has been shown. And we'll save this as, let's see, let me get my rooms document out here, and we'll call this Well, I already have this as end one. I'll just save it again, I suppose. Okay. And then we just have to say G. Oh, debuggers. Okay, so we wait for this. Be done. Get your Socrates. Good. Abraham Lincoln. Party on, dudes. Napoleon Bonaparte. Yeah, we were going to do a whole, the whole end of the movie here. Marie Antoinette. Dr. Sigmund Freud. Each one has a little theme song. And then I could say, this would be a good place to hit the debugger, but I'm giving you an A+. plus. I already saved this speech. Oh, I forgot to save that right before Wild Stallion. But it could be that it's patched. But let's see if we can go. Oops. Let's load the state again from here and call Missy and do that whole little last dance again, and then I'll save it for another point. He's on the way. All right, Missy. All right, go. Remember, when you're waiting for a key, clear the key before wait. Unless you want the last key pressed to linger in the buffer. Yeah, a thing like that. Okay, here we go. Congratulations. All right, hold on. Doop. Save it right here. Good. Then I'd need to like slow the emulator down. Load state. Oh, too slow. I think it's actually loaded at that point. I could potentially. Oh, look, it's got a little weird S there. That's from Skid Row. I see what they've done. That's very clever of them. Huh. I believe that's. Yeah, look at that. That's hilarious. 2, 3. Oh, yep. See, it's 3 seconds or so, or even less. Oh, I see. It's just Skid Row. I don't know where I got the idea. Come on. Code. 1, 2, boom. There you go. I think I got it just before it started to animate. Look at that. Good timing. Boom. All right. Now we can put that bloody emulator. I finally got it. And I'll just mention. I believe the background data does get modified. We don't care. The delta animation is nice enough to restore it in its little loop. let it go and see what it does with that. Yeah, see, I was looking for another match, right? In case the delta animation, let's see if that was the issue. Yep, that was also refreshed. It noticed. See, it notices stuff. It noticed that the other file was changed without my asking it to. So there you go. I may ask it to split up skills and be more and be a little more yeah. You'll see. You'll see. Coded contiguously was decompressed and awaiting. Mentioning stuff. Will that matter? Let's find out. Logged everywhere. We're in a pretty good fresh session, so I don't know. Everywhere. The new dump 34 paid off exactly as hoped. Mm-hmm. Skipped header, the rest is contiguous. Staging buffer area. Reconstituted compressors output is byte identical. Post animation superseded. Okay. Commit the workspace, optional background run of rewired make extract. Okay. Go this. Carry on. Proceed. I use a lot of, instead of just saying yes, funky phrases. Tally ho. Sally forth. Yep, it's a process. Someone said something. What's up? What if there's a way to zoom this with scaling it without. Well, what the heck? I'll just move it way up. Change the size later. A little bit less tall. Yeah. So far, our one question related to Marlene, not the current. But for those who are curious about the current topic, working with agents to, say, deconstruct old code from retro days, I'll give you a sense of how much this is costing me. Using Hermes Agent, by the way. And let's see what's going on. RE. Get out my LLM meter page here and look at what cost has been. I'll tell you how much I've spent in the last week. $1.88. $1.88. That's what it's cost me for the last week of stuff. I've only been working really intensely the last couple of days. So let's see, in the last 24 hours, since I got up today, basically, or maybe, I don't know, since around this time yesterday, we'll say, 81 cents. DeepSeek V4 Flash is not expensive, especially when it's, right now it's hot. It's got a discount on OpenRouter and elsewhere. So here's where it stands. Done. Okay, sources byte exact, 12 out of 12. Games, rooms, great. Files, forensics, memory, still running, still doing those last couple. Fresh session starting point, to-do list, boot main chain. So it really likes, at this point, I've been encouraging it to do fresh sessions a lot. So it keeps coming back to that, which is fine. It basically wants to make sure that at the end of any turn, it knows it's ready to continue even if I start a fresh session. In general, getting better with that. Again, I set up one profile specifically for this one task. And then I'm going to be reusing it when I start on Dino Wars, which is my other Amiga game. The engines of both this and Dino Wars are similar but different. Dino Wars has sprites as well. And it all comes down to, like, if I'd had better assets and stuff and more time and more space and like all that back in the day. I could have done so much more with these. It was really kind of just like struggling to balance. It's like I wanted to be a coder full time, but you have to go and get a job, and life comes along. They're like, oh well, you must have a girlfriend and a car and an apartment, and all these things start to get in the way of, like, I just want to be a coder, man. Where's my coder job? But yeah, there was some interesting times. I gotta say, it was kind of white slavery, so called. Just called slavery in general. Uh, the idea being, do it for the exposure, do it for the experience. This is, you put in all the work, and then afterwards there'll be like all kinds of great stuff will come out of it because you'll have a big old, reputation. You'll have a game going, money will be flowing in. The promises we believed in. But the game crash of the mid '80s was a big wake up call for a lot of us. Saw things like switching. It was like, oh, things were shifting way to the PC side and consoles, and the old consoles were falling by the wayside because of the huge interest in PC games and the cheap PCs. It was like, why would I want to play an Atari 2600 when for a Commodore 64 isn't that costly and it has way better games, and I can use it for my balancing my checkbook. Of course, the IBM PC was a big shift too. It was just a big box, like the old school computers were. Like, you just keep adding cards to it, and it'll get more powerful. Was the idea. Hasn't changed much. Still a cool concept, but it goes way back to, like, the old backplane computer days of PDP-11 and stuff. It's crazy. Your what was the other one that everybody had at home back in the day, just before the ones with keyboards and screens? Well, anyway, so here we are, fresh session. Okay, I think boot main chain. Oh, great. Let's attack the boot main chain and follow the flow. Let's just call them comprehensive. Boop. Onward we go. I don't know how much rephrasing and reiterating and stuff helps, but as it builds up the memory and so on, it'll be interesting to see like how much the existence of memories about this or that memory location and so on end up cluttering things when it comes to discussing Dino Wars. We're able to compartmentalize ourselves like information and just put it into a big old box. Everything we previously knew is now, previously knew, and then like later information can modify that or become superseded. And these memory systems can do that, but you have to really don't know exactly how. There's got to be a forget command, replace memory command, update memory, that kind of thing, where it's like completely modifies its understanding and throws away its completely older misunderstanding of things. You get the sense from these memory things they do retain everything, and you just don't want them. Not really. You want them to retain maybe the raw information to work with scientifically to understand your brain, your processes, whatever. Uh, but there's so much noise in there; it can be really hard to find what is what without following, basically reading the entire chain, going, oh, that's where it failed, that's where it succeeded, and then later going, oh wait, I thought it succeeded, but then it didn't, so I have to now go back. Constant revision is it's something we're wishing for. Really, is our models to have constant revision as they come to understand new things. They throw away previous understandings and update their understandings, which therefore has a cascading effect of updating the related understanding, so on and so forth. Um, I do believe, though, that that can be tricky because if something doesn't quite understand where something fits, like if you haven't written it up where this fits and how they fit together hierarchically, and so on, what contains what uses what relates to what, and in different ways, and what those relationships are, it can be very hard for it to make sense in the moment of any of them. But I think that's the aim of having, say, really, if you could have that side LLM that's picking up semantic meaning and retaining it as you go, um, and is able to be referenced. They will be much more like ourselves. I mean, really, the whole thing with an LLM is it is just that kind of like everything it spits out is provisional. Let's see what happens. It's like, oh, okay, let's go. Here's a command. What happened? Here's a statement to the user. What happens? Yeah, let's see what happens. Uh, oh, it failed. Okay, try again. Everything is just try again, and over time, presumably, it's luck, so called, gets better. That's the general idea. Is you're giving it little hints, little breadcrumbs, so that its luck along the way gets better. You give it too much, it gets lost. Give it too little, it gets lost. Now it's really focusing a lot on this data over and over again. I really don't know so much on the details of the data. Once you know what it is, it should just be able to like forget about details and refer to the summary. You know, and that's kind of the idea. Is like you want it to always go to the summary and only delve into details when it really. And these things don't necessarily automatically write up things in just that way as you would want. They don't follow those kinds of techniques necessarily unless you guide them to do so. Once, like if it says in its a system instruction, once you do this, you always do that. It'll give better luck in getting it to always do that. And once you do this other thing, you always do this other thing. um, course, you don't necessarily know what those will be until you've gone through the processes. You can just add them to skills as well, because skills become similar to the soul and the system prompt. I think the deepest system prompt in this is that you're an agent, and then the next up system prompt is the soul prompt, and then the next prompt up is that skill. Here's your skills. Here's your tools. Here's the skills that will apply to this. And here's other skills that you may want to. And then it decides from that point on what skills to pull in using the skills. But the harness also, provides that up front. Like, here are your tools within the harness you can use. Hermes harness is interesting in that it's so modular. Like, if you rip out everything, it you can really kind of just start from scratch. And like, just all it knows how to do is write skills. For example, it doesn't have any skills, but all it knows how to do is write them. You can have it start from there and just start writing skills out. Everything that, and it'll end up reproducing a lot of what was already bundled with it, but in a new and unique way, depending on the model you pick and your own particular style. And that might be one of the ways to go with a tool like this, is really just rip everything out and start over and see where you can go. The thing is, you can do that with an individual profile. Is you can set up a profile that has no skills and just see what it does from there. Have it start to build its skills on its own. But you often do find you're like, oh, I wish you knew how to do this, and you go and you pull in one of the existing skills from somewhere else, either the root or one of your other profiles. I actually have some skills that now have been evolving within profiles that haven't been evolving outside of them, or maybe evolved differently, but depending on different profiles. So I need to kind of compare them and see what that can do to inform. Look at all this code. What the hell? Yeah, it's really going into the code now. So at this point, it's going into the boot loop. So this is what I wanted finally. Once it has its bearings and a map of the territory, it can start to dig in on the code. And it understands it, which is, cool. That's one of the things is, again, models have innate knowledge. LLMs have innate knowledge so that their outputs can be coherent. So you don't have to tell them absolutely everything. But you never know how deep that innate knowledge goes, or how flawed that innate knowledge may be. Like, I've found many occasions where it thought it knew something, but of course it didn't. And it'll still output stuff as if it knows that. And it's just wrong or crazy. And all you can do is just, if you're not doing something like this where it's verifiable, you just have to be like, oh, okay, fine. Like, having it write up an article based on your outline about something you're trying to write about it's a mistake. Don't let these things write. Like, they're pretty good for the outline part, and you can follow that outline and you can be like, yeah, I like the way that the outline goes. And then, have it suggest things and so on, and have it work with you as a writing partner, but I wouldn't let it do that. Don't let it do that. Write it yourself. Improvise. In fact, talk if you can, because nowadays when we start writing, it starts to sound way too much like agents. I find myself going back and correcting so much that I can never finish a bloody article by typing it. Almost never these days. So it gets tricky, especially as I wanted to write this long series about what I've been experiencing here on my thinkyhead.com site and learning. But 5-part article where I have all these notes that I'm gathering from. Of course, I want the agent to start to pull that in, but it's all wrong and not quite how I'd write it. So I end up basically rewriting it all anyway. But it's good to have that kind of structure to kind of see, okay, this is how it decided to follow it. And I'm like, not quite, and I can rewrite it myself uh, almost completely for this part. But I do appreciate the help and the assistance in that weird way. Sometimes it can be better than being like, we don't all have like people who can call at any hour of the day and be like, help me write. So having a little assistant for writing, coding, whatever, deconstructing as we are here. All that stuff comes back very helpful. Comes to be very helpful to the process. Something to bounce things off of. A mirror, can often be good. Uh, at least if it's not too sycophantic. And generally speaking, the models I'm picking are just boring. They're not sycophantic. They're just they do. Now it's getting into that loop where it's like, I don't know, maybe, but wait, hold on. Definitive disassemble exposes something subtle. Look 2 bytes low. Matters for label placement. Let me see. Settle the real targets by computing from the actual bytes. So yeah, so this is a cool thing. It gets to a point where it can build it like we would. Then it goes and verifies the build and says, oh, that's weird. And then it'll go and try and sort out what the issue is and compare it against the original. Yeah, and this model is also very nice in that it very quickly catches itself and says, oh, I'm thinking too much. I'm wasting time. And then actually stops itself, which is pretty nice. I appreciate that from DeepSeek v4 Flash, even though, again, I've spent now 81 cents today on this, so yeah, it's crazy, man. It is just crazy. Like, at the moment, it's burning in the realm of 0.004 cents every minute or so. So, what's that, 250 minutes per cent, something like that, or maybe 2,500 minutes? Yeah, it's a long time. It's just crazy. I can't believe how little I'm spending on this stuff, and getting real things done. I've also used local models to some degree of success, and I can't really demo that while I'm running OBS. That's the one thing I found. I can run OBS on a different machine or run my tests on a different machine of local models. The one I can really run local models on well is this one, of course, is my Mac Studio. It's got 64 gigs, which leaves about 48 free, at least for models sometimes. So, but I don't run. I'm trying to use around 30 gigs or less, generally speaking, when I'm running models. But if I need the extra space, I can always quit something like Sublime, which I have a lot of files open, and it uses about 3.2 gigabytes. Crazy. Having tabs open is sort of my way of remembering what I'm working on. That's my to-do list. I should just put up a to-do list instead, huh? I remember at one point I had a thing I made, which was a menu bar thing for shortcut, or an app that I eventually was going to do as a menu bar shortcut. But the app was, you would remember where your windows were and what tabs were open, your position, and all. And those apps exist. There's many of them. I think it was one called Stay, was what it was called. It also helped, like, if you removed a monitor or repositioned your monitors or whatever, or changed the resolution. It was good at keeping things where you wanted them for resolution. So you could do that. And I remember I originally built it all in like Real Basic or something. I was going to make a menu bar anyway, but nowadays I'm like, yeah, I'd really like to have something that like that, kind of like for my projects, where for each project I'm working on, I have a workspace. And when I go there, it's like all there. And when I think about it, really on the Mac, it could just be a user. Each one could be a separate user account, and each of those user accounts could be a separate project. That kind of messes with things because then each one is a different home folder, and then the paths, like, they've gotten so used to having a single home folder that everything can refer to, slash users slash thinkyit or whatever. And if it's like, if I have more than that, then it is this going to make the agents more confused? I mean, it's not a problem for me. It might be a problem for some of my scripts if I wrote them that way. I don't. So, I don't know. It might be that I could do that kind of thing where I create different accounts for each of them. Excuse my rough throat. abcd.b. I can't remember what that is. Is it a binary coded decimal? Add? I don't remember that we had BCD add, but we did on the 68,000, all the better. I guess we probably did. It's like such a common need. All that does is like when you add 1 to 9 instead of going to A, it becomes 16. 1 0. Skips A, B, C, D, E, F. You only get digits 0 to 9, and you can use that as a trick to display hex numbers as if they were decimal numbers. And you can display a score that way. It still works as a comparison. This is a greater score than your previous score. Write it down. It looks the same. Nobody knows that it's hex. Okay. We have, oh, the other thing, of course, is it's referring back to DevPack. Back in the day on the Amiga, the DevPack assembler was the one I was using, and I really liked it a lot. I believe at one point the company I was working for acquired Mitchtron, and I don't know if they were the ones that made DevPack, but I don't think it was, but Mitchtron made some other stuff. I should look them up. Let's look them up now. It was called Mitchtron Enterprises. Let's see what they had. Yeah. February 1984, they had changed their name. Yep, they made DevPack so amazingly. What a great piece of software it was. And then also HiSoft Basic. So what's amazing is the company I was working for actually acquired them. And if I had had a brain in 1990, I would have stuck with them. But I think I would have insisted on a change of staff. The guy who owned it was like, it's going to be the guy who owned it. But in general, like, it was just the whole reason that fell apart. It's very sad. Was that when I got to Delaware, or after I'd done Bill and Ted and Dino Wars, they were all published. I went home. I was like, wow, cool. I'm going to be making more stuff with these guys. It'd be fun. It was a little bit uptight sometimes. I was like, they weren't, I was a young kid, maybe 20, 21 at that time. Well, I guess I was probably coming on 23. I wasn't really a drinker, or anything like that. So, but these dudes were like, let's go have beers. And I was like, oh. So I'd be sober, they'd be drunk, and it was boring. Uh, and they were bored. And then like, one dude was like, like me, living in an apartment, struggling, but it was a small place, and he had this cat, and he wasn't really very uh, hygienic, and would leave like record on all night and stuff. It was just like, and I was sleeping on the floor, and it was just like not a pleasant place. So when I went back, I was like, okay, am I going to have a decent place to live this time? Like they want me to commit to this thing. What's going on? And like they showed me this like basement, like this dingy basement that I was going to be staying in with the same guy, and I'm like, nope. And I had driven all night, all day to get there from Massachusetts to Delaware, and I just got back in my car and I just started driving home. I didn't even go. I guess they were probably expecting me to show up at the office, meet us at the office, and I just drove home. I drove back to Cape Cod. I was like, screw this. This is just such an insult. It was such an incredible insult. I was just like, God, you really want to torture me? Like, this is insane. Like, give me a place that has like windows and a rug and a bathroom and a bed and a shower and kitchen, and let me live a normal human life while I'm a coder working for you guys. I'm not going to live in a dingy basement with this guy, this cokehead who can't sleep, with his crazy cat. No, doesn't clean up after himself. And is constantly moaning and moaning and moaning. What a sad time. I tell you what, though. Yeah, I have similar complaints about pretty much every bloody company I've ever gone to work for that was like a startup like that. It was like these guys are insane. It just they're expecting like way too much from me here, like in terms of tolerance and like forgiveness, like and putting up with like I mean I was young so resilient I could put up with a lot of like discomfort, but and I was like I didn't have so much pride, and I was like people would insult me to my face, and I'd be like, oh, that's not nice. Gee willikers, what's wrong with me? I'm probably still that way, but yeah, I was like only later in life did I start to get a little bit of enough pride to start being insulted when I should be. And god damn, almost every job I've had is in this industry, tech industry, has been demeaning, and like I'd rather just work in a kitchen. Like the job is straightforward. You know, your goals are clear, your metrics are easy to see. Like everything is like right in front of you. There's no mystery. Uh, you go work for techies, and like you're expected to put up with the craziest things, the craziest. Um, and then at the same time, like go in every day and debase yourself every damn day. It's just like, I don't know. You're a worker. You work in America. You know what I'm talking about. You work in your country. I hope it's better in Canada. But we all have to go and work for somebody who has money to get money for ourselves, whether it be a company or an individual. And it's always a little bit of a head bowing situation. Oftentimes it's not merited, you know. But where there's merit, I'm happy to um, submit to really good authorities and really smart people and so on who are kind and like really want me to be their collaborator. And but yeah, this kind of idea where you're just expected to. Anyway, it's a lot. It's a lot. I'm still obviously traumatized. That's my PTSD story. Like other people have war stories. I have like trying to break into the industry and having to deal with nonsense. Um, and it's been the same for web development or whatever. I'm like I've always been happier as a freelancer, even if you're at least if your client is nuts. Like you talk with them once a week or whatever. You don't have to see them every day. Uh, and it's pretty much down. Once your job is done, it's all a maintenance prod thing. And for the most part, again, if they're really awful and they decide not to pay you or whatever, you can be like, okay, live and learn. It's their reputation, not mine. Moving on. Uh, if you have a little bit of a buffer, it helps. But yeah, it's what's going to happen with AI? Again, it's not changing this at all. It just means that we're using a new tool, and it lets us do more. Maybe people expect more from us, but at the same time, like I am getting some pretty cool results. If you've been to my website, I like the nice clean layout that it's got for me. It's more stuff I want to do, a little fancier. But I went for simple. I kept it simple. Didn't want to, make free and cheap LLMs work too hard. And step by step, it's easy to move content from one place to another, and repackage it. These things are great, that kind of thing. And it would have taken me so much longer. I was really like struggling for years to kind of like just decide what approach to even take to get my website back. There is an old .thinkyhead.com, which is the old site, and I still have it in case I do decide to rip it out and put it into a Drupal 10 package or something. But I really like just writing Markdown and publishing Jekyll. It's much simpler. And if I do need things that are functional on the site, like a contact form, I just have it write it, had it write it, just wrote it for me. And if I need to make a better captcha, I'll write one. Security through my obscurity, and I'll figure out ways of like dealing with that kind of thing. Why not? Uh, I don't have to go to services for that kind of thing, which will be cool. Ready for the next chunk. Funk got dude's data A2, the present dude dialogue spawn routine, and the boot into game. go with next chunk. Next chunk is go. Let's just go with that. Yep, that means proceed. So of course, if you tell it stuff like that, it has to take a few tokens to tell itself what you said. Things are funny. Like I really like you can't really like I tried saying things to it like you don't have to repeat yourself when you already know stuff. Like you already said it earlier, you don't have to repeat it. Just refer to it. But I don't know the way these things work, like the token, the way it emits tokens. Maybe it does kind of right in front, and then oh, I said this here, therefore this. Um, but that's one of the things I'm like, if it had very specific ways of referencing things in its own conversation, like I'm going to put a marker on this conversation piece, and then when I want to refer to it, I just have to refer to that mark, refer to that like if it could do that in a way, like I know that the attention mechanism, that's what that is effectively. This blob of text means quote unquote means this or has this mathematical implication to it. But it feels like as you build these layers up, you can use the layers to feed into the lower layers or as augmenters of the lower layers. I mean, the way we're doing it now, right? Writing files, writing notes, going and pulling out those notes to do the things we need to do, pulling out those files, referring to that script, using that tool, using that MCP, all those things that pull into the context. There must be some layer at which we can kind of do this, just how do I understand stuff? You know what I mean? Just the fundamentals. And then once the fundamentals are sorted, then it can stop stumbling over the fundamentals. Thing is, if you give it fundamentals, you can't just give that a big old prompt. Here's all your fundamentals. Go, and then here's your giant instruction. Now do a big loop. Like the fundamentals really do have to become baked in. But low rank adapters gives an option, a possibility again for a way of having us do our own tuning without having a huge cost, without having to rewrite the model, without having to have a million synthetic examples and all that. Just have it, tune on our actual work while we're working. So I'd like to see. Of course, my fans would now be blasting, if it were. They blast enough when I'm just doing Olama memories, like imagine if I'm doing other stuff. All that other stuff too. Training the model and making LoRa, low rank adapting. We're about our third hour into our stream, although I did take a break for a while. I even took a shower. I really was feeling like I hadn't uh, woken up and just hadn't gotten my day started. And I'm like, oh, well, it's 3 o'clock. I guess I should need to start my stream. Oh, but what the hell? I don't feel awake. Sorry, folks, taking a break. We'll be back. Now, to keep things interesting here, I should be, ranting about controversial topics. Get all primogen on y'all, but just not me. Just not strident enough. I'm just not catty enough. Is that the word? Okay, it's apparently making progress getting through this next bit. Sound region. Cool. I kind of want to have it start diving into like formalizing the game engine at some point real soon, so that it really has a sense of like the formalities, that it really knows what the game engine looks like. here is what we have. It's all we have. It's not a lot. And really, there isn't. This is so, it's really like it's as basic as you can imagine. Like it's almost like the core routines of any OS, like just drawing a box with some stuff in it. I don't think I put my clever blit routine in this, but I might have used it somewhere. Like maybe I used it for the Missy sprite. Possible, but I don't think so. But it again, it's entirely possible I did. Double check. Hmm. Bset.l. Interesting. Yeah, there's one of the rules it figured out along the way was no trust. I might have gotten it from uh, some reference that I gave it was like, don't trust the decompiler. Like the source code that it gives you is not necessarily correct. Check against the binary. Always check against the binary. Um, it looks like bset. It prefers bset.l sometimes and bset without .l sometimes. I think bset is always .l. What's this? PC reference topic target position only stub label below. Okay, let's commented it out. So you see, this is kind of the way I prefer to work with agents. Is even though it's going in a long loop, I can follow some of what it's doing, and I prefer to kind of observe, and if I see it going in a funked up direction, I will redirect it. I will send it on a different tack, give it a little bit of a prompt, as it were. Hmm, yes. 2 bytes early. Diffing my assembled bytes. Yeah, one of these days I may start making more formal videos that are edited, uh, going over things in a more methodical way. It's hard to find concise examples when you work with these things. That's the one thing, is you think you're going to have something that just like, here, I'm going to go show you this thing, and then oops. Sometimes these limits come at just the right moment, but I have to keep telling it this stuff just in case. So again, I don't know why it tells itself what I just told it. That would be one of the things I would have. I would definitely, oh, move Q didn't work there. Move W. I don't know why I would use move W and not move Q. I'm sure I use move Q poorly. Oh, interesting. That's interesting. I guess that's a case where I just didn't. Search and replace was harder back in the day, but I totally would have replaced that with move Q. Move Q is the only difference between move and move Q is that like if it's between 0 and 255, it fits inside the instructions, so it just makes it part of the instruction. Or maybe it's small numbers. I think it might only be numbers between 0 and 7. Do move Q with. Oh, it's been a while. I need to look that up. But yeah, it can be part of the instruction. That way, it's like there's whatever small number of instructions. I I don't think there were 256 different move cue. Honestly, that's asking a bit. I'm pretty sure it was like there were 8 different ones in 0 and 7. So my guess is instead, the reason I didn't use move queue there is because it's like one of these things where it's calculated, not guaranteed to be less than 7, less than 8. But it's one of the things where you could imagine macros would step in and be like, well, is this address, whatever, then you could use this instruction. Otherwise, use this instruction. Then you're getting into compiler territory at that point. With this project, I use devpack again, devpack assembler. I would love to see what happened with that afterward. Like again, I was looking it up. Let's look up and see what happened with devpack assembler. I do have it. I don't have the most ready setup to run Amiga with devpack yet, so I need to set that up. But we go to Wikipedia's HighSoft Systems. Created in 1980 in Bedfordshire before moving to Greenfield. HighSoft Basic, HighSoft C. Interesting. I don't know if it's interesting. There's not a lot of information about it on Wikipedia. I'm just checking. And then I'll check Mitchtron. They're not mentioned there at all, I don't think. Well, I used the devpack 3, as I recall. And there's an article about it, or a video about it from YouTube on March 30th, 2024 from Dave Pooh, his second channel. Yeah, I'm a big fan, honestly. I had a lot of fun with it. I mean, this was like in the early days. It was like I had this, it was better than anything I had used previously. And so if we go to I'll just go to the English here. That's crazy. There's a devpack assembler that IMX Sinclair has as well, the Z80. I wonder if it's related. Well, let me bring up the page for you all to look at. Boop. Here we are. There are many more links, but let's take a look here. devpack has been unloaded in the zone before. Zoom up on this a bit. Sorry about all the hideous ads on this site. They do exist, perhaps. Has been uploaded. Legal standpoint, ceasing distribution is not giving them the right to ignore copyrights. However, yeah, I mean, really, if you have it, it's an interesting thing where if you have or own a copy of devpack 3 in the past, you download it, effectively use, that's fine. If you were part of the company that bought Mitchtron that owned HighSoft, then yes, you can also consider yourself downloading it. And since I was part of that, I give you all formal permission to, as a former part of the whole fiasco that was mistreated. And then there's all the ones that you can download. The latest devpack on my HD. Yeah, they do exist. There's not a lot to be said for about it, apparently. I was hoping for more kind of like useful information. So apparently I need to scroll down. This page is screwy. Got an ad on the front. Okay, there we go. Hopefully it didn't just open an ad in the background or something. I don't see any pop-ups, do you? Safari is pretty good at blocking that sort of stuff. So Yeah, Barfly. Oh yeah, well, of course, right now I'm using VASM to do the assembly. And generally speaking, as I work with this stuff going forward, I'm going to be using the fastest assembler I can. But honestly, you're working on the Amiga with DevPack, it was so fast. That was the thing. It was like it did disassemble very fast. It wasn't like you were waiting minutes or even seconds. Honestly, it was like it was done. Now, building this game was more than just assembling. I would assemble the code, and then I had to write it to disk in just the right places. And then I had the data, which had to be converted and then written to the disk sectors in just the right places as well. And all of that I must have scripted somehow. I don't remember. I think I just had notes. That's right, too. You could do shell scripts, of course. So yeah, I may have just written it up as a shell script back in the day. I don't know if I once I get this code built back into readable shape, usable shape, I will be rebuilding a dev pack project of it, and that'll be published to my website thinkyhead.com, along with any other things that I am able to suss out of this. The whole purpose of this is to basically recover historical, useful stuff about the Amiga. This is really from this is the my peak period when I had this sprite library that I had started years before for Odyssey. Um, and I remember one day I was working on it and refining stuff, and I was about to dive into some aspect that I needed to do, like larger sprites optimization or something. And I was being called upon to do some kind of demo, something like stop what you're doing, go do a demo. I didn't really know much about it. I didn't have a spec. Um, but anyway, the whole thing was a bit. Just say that the priorities for me in almost every situation that I've been in, like developer wise, has been to get an engine created so that I could reuse it, keep and save time on every project, and also have something that everybody can work with. I passed my engine on. Now we're all building games with the engine. You make better things in the engine than I did. That was part of mine. We had 4 or 5 developers in that room who were all quite talented and could make work of it. We could have made a really great engine out of this thing, but the environment was just unbearable for me. I had to leave. It was just too much obnoxiousness, loudness, and noise and mess, and it wasn't a conducive environment to work in. Uh, if you've seen *Halt and Catch Fire*, it was like that basically. It was that. Um, you know, Not exactly knocking holes in the wall and running wires everywhere like a network company, like whatever Commodore 64 BBS system or whatever that show was about. This was much more like, we had BBSs and stuff, but no, we just started to dive into like the Nintendo Entertainment System, and George was fixing up the code in the NES because the NES code sucked. So there were all kinds of bugs in the NES game that we were given to as our starting point. It was an engine by, I think, Bunch Games or somebody like that. Yes, Bunch Games. I'm pretty sure it was famous. I think it was Bunch Games at that time. I could be wrong, but yeah, they gave us some engine, and it was like the Bunch engine. I could be remembering all of this wrong. Don't quote me on any of this. But the one thing I do remember is that George found all kinds of bugs and was able to optimize that thing like right out of the box. Like it wasn't like, I don't know what kind of geniuses they had working on their game engine. All kinds of crap in there. So he had optimized it, and it was used eventually to make a game called Moon Ranger for the Nintendo, which is not highly praised, but it's not bad. Uh, and I think the thing is, like, I was very much interested in having like I was very much into the indirection thing. Gravity moves things, and so you move with acceleration, and then that creates acceleration, and then you use that acceleration as your motion. Uh, as you have a speed and stuff like that. So it was much, I was looking for natural fluid stuff, and I was looking to improve my animation and like get fluid animation stuff. And but it was like, gosh, we were just being rushed. It really felt like suddenly I was like going from being like person who was trying to get artistic in my code endeavors to like being rushed into this like money making thing. And I was, nah, I gotta move. Because if we just produced quality stuff, we would have made like 10% more quality could have been the difference between getting a good review and a bad review, and selling that many more, and getting that next chance to do that next game. But they were into like just flooding, putting out a bunch of shovelware basically, and some of it was good. Some of it was like I would say that the Odyssey version of Arkanoid was really good. It's called Jailbreak. Again, there are obnoxious aspects to these games. The aesthetics of the lead developer or company owner are not exactly my aesthetics, uh, but they are what they are, and so work with it. You work with it as you can. That looks to me like code. I don't know. That almost looks like code to me. Well, anyway, yeah. So I don't know. I shouldn't bitch and complain, but I have to. I had to bail on Cape Cod because it was just like things weren't working for me there. Uh, I mean, the opportunities. Yeah, you kind of like you don't look a gift horse in the mouth and all this. I was lucky to have something there that was like an actual like what game endeavor making games for the platform that I was really into, the Amiga. But it was just like you know if I had been in charge, man, um, maybe I wouldn't have done any better, honestly. But I, I think I would have been much more focused on like fundamentals, like the technical fundamentals, um, animation fundamentals, understanding indirection, um, acceleration, physics, building up on all of that stuff, and maybe gone forward with like I was very interested in like low level like optimizations. I was looking at 3D stuff and experimenting with that. And but again, it's like life getting in the way. How much time do you have? Like with backing, I could have really delved and built so much incredible stuff. And it was just like because I wasn't really supported, I felt so unsupported, so underappreciated, honestly, underpaid, under like just yeah. Really just is like again, it was that thing. Every time you go into tech, like the people you work for, is like just I don't know why, but for some reason they just for some reason always feel like some need to treat you like dirt in those situations. And I'm man, such a talented kid, man, and such a happy-go-lucky, gung-ho, ready to go. These days, it's hard for me to make the effort because I feel like it's like, why bother? There's a million games out there. Mine's not going to make a difference. What am I going to learn? I've already learned it. What engine do I care about? There's a million engines. It's just the paralysis of choice, the paralysis of having so many, you know, things going on. But the thing is, like, with all this going on, it's kind of it makes sense to do stuff that's just more meaningful to you. Like write the game you want to write that like says something about your life or your reality, or, that conveys something to people that you want to like that you're trying to find, express or whatever. I don't know what to say about it, but look, I've spent $1 in the last day on this stuff. $1. I do about $30 a month in my balance right now, so um, and that seems to be about. I'm trying to spend 20 or 30 or less basically per month. I have some free tokens I get from GitHub because I have a popular repo, which by the way, a new release coming, and and then a brand new build after that. Big old new project. Uh, yeah. So that feeling of being unsupported in your development and in your, especially in your like when you're like really enthusiastic about the thing that they want you to be enthusiastic about. Hey, you want a job? And I guess I'll do that job. Yeah. No, I was really gung ho to do the job that I was hired to do. I want to do the best that I could do. the best that I could do it. Um, and I was not, I was not an idiot. I knew that I had to get the fundamentals and the engine built. Man, and then I had, and the thing was, I had all kinds of fun little ideas like that I would do along the way, like as little mini games or just trying things to see how many sprites I could get on screen, and then I would try to push that. And I was really, I was in the midst of that, that endeavor when I was told to like, look you, go do work on this instead. Don't you see but what about the thing? Yeah, yeah, whatever. Like, God damn it, man. Like, what? What do you mean, whatever? This is the engine. This is what I'm gonna be. This is the whole point. Uh, oh gosh, yeah, man. I think I got the other thing too was like I got like maybe $1,500 up front or some shit for like this Dino Wars project. And and then like later on, I paid that money back. Like even after all that fuckery, ended up paying that money back. I was like, yeah, I guess you can have it back. Thanks, thanks for the 1,500. Honestly, I really should have sued them. I should have sued Odyssey for all the royalties for all the music that I did for them and all the other stuff. Like none of that was ever in any way accounted for or compensated whatsoever. It was just zero appreciation. But whatever. You don't have to appreciate. I guess the thing is, if you think someone's a jerk, you can just treat them however you. Once you've decided they're a jerk, you don't have to treat them. You can dehumanize people. And pointy-haired bosses, man. What are you gonna do? Still haven't found out what I wanted to find out about dev pack. Like whatever happened to the final? What was the final? Um, I guess that really was the final version because once Off the Wall Productions bought Mitchtron and therefore the assets of Highsoft and DevPack, I do believe those were part of it. It may have, it might have been, it might have been that that wasn't part of the deal. I think they got everything else except for that. I think about it. So I can't give you permission to have it. Sorry, but couldn't anyway. Now people may ask, what's the relation between Amiga and 3D printing and all that? Well, the boards we use on 3D printers are pretty much about as powerful as an Amiga. Some of them way more. But yeah, the earlier ones like the 16 megahertz boards and stuff, you could probably power, you could probably use an AVR board. Like they're 8 bits and stuff. They'd have to emulate. Really, your better bet is to just get the better processors and stuff on the Amiga. But for one of these, amazing emulator add-ons or whatever, the idea that you can do amazing, useful stuff with processors of that era from the mid 90s. The AVR processor in your 3D printer was from 1998. That's when it was originally made, and they haven't changed it since. It might be made in more modern processes on silicon, um, so they can make them smaller, but the architecture itself hasn't changed since 1998. But I mean, the same is true for your like little PIC processors and others like that. That you know, they're like the staples of doing your embedded programming projects. You need to know these little platforms. Um, so among the other projects I'm working with agents on are in retro world. There's a Wacom tablet project I used to do. I'm trying to revive that, but the one tablet I have, I need this particular hardware to connect it to be able to even test it. So I would need to basically make a new keyspan driver for the keyspan USB to serial adapter and so on. But the actual code for Tablet Magic could could be itself revived for cases where people do have a working serial port with a connected tablet. But my real aim, I was thinking the better thing to do would be to make an adapter so I can connect my tablet and then just USB into the computer. And then at that point, there's a microprocessor in between, that then handles all the protocols and it looks to the computer just like a modern USB tablet. And that was kind of the next thing I was going to do. But that's where the barrel jack issue I ran into. It's RS-242 with a weird barrel jack. So not only do I need to use the weird barrel jack, I also need to do this other stuff. So I thought, well, one way to do that would be I could put I could use something like a Raspberry Pi and have Linux running on it, and then it has a driver for the key span. I could connect it that way. But then you have Linux in the middle, and so you can imagine that the events that it's getting by the time it gets them and then puts them out by USB to my computer, by that point they're lagging. So although it could work, I probably should try it on the Raspberry Pi since I have a spare, um, and really give that a shot and see what I can make it do. I'll just have the agent take care of all the details as usual. But these are, again, another fun thing you can do with agents. Just let them figure. There's a lot of details, install the right version of Linux for me, get the right driver, install the driver, test the driver. Now that the driver is working, now let's make the pass through that tell that my computer, when it's connected to the Pi over USB, also powering it, maybe, it's also getting a serial port that it talks to, and that's the serial port that looks to it like a tablet. Maybe there's another way to do that, but that's the idea. I don't know. I don't know where to begin. So I have some general ideas, but again, all the stuff I'm talking about is like the agent would figure that out in the first 40 seconds, and then be off to the races from there. So that could be fun. But I've already written I already did do an HID driver on a Teensy, so I had to solder up a couple Teensies. That was fun. I had it set that up and test it. So I actually have a Teensy that has an HID that looks like a tablet. And so when I connect it to my computer, it actually starts up and moves the mouse around in a circle, I think is what I had it do. And that's all it does. It just moves the mouse in a circle until you disconnect it. So I have like that kind of thing. So that's pretty cool. So I know I can get once I have a tablet connected to it, I can have it pass through and look just like a tablet, and I don't have to do any more. So I feel like I'm 80% of the way there. The hard part is just I have to make the circuit um, with the barrel jack. The thing is, I can desolder one of the barrel jacks because there's two. I'll show you the keyspan adapter here. Here's the adapter. You can see it's got two jacks, and yeah, so I have two jacks. I can just desolder one of them off this board that's inside here and use that in my project rather than order a brand new one ready to go. So that's one thing that I'm working on with agents. Another is, of course, Dino Wars, the other Amiga game. I started on some Atari games because I wanted to write an Atari 800 game back in the day and never did. So, there's a great firewall of frustrations between me and my distant past. And that's just the beginning of the firewall. The first frustration was I never got to the point where I was adept at optimizing games because I had them ready to submit. I had ideas and I would submit them to magazines and they'd be like too slow. I'm like, if I could just make it faster. So I've learned obviously over the years how to do that. I know how to optimize, and I was also like towards the late '80s. I was starting to do a lot more like just pure 6502 assembly, and I was producing all kinds of great stuff. Then I just like moved away to Boston, and just like it all fell by the wayside. And all that stuff is gone. Like, I had so much cool stuff. It's all gone. I left my Atari 400 with add-on keyboard, all the discs. I just left them in a closet in Somerville, and I have no idea what became of them. They're all just forgotten. Someone probably just pulled them out and threw them in the landfill. Maybe sold them. I don't know, but there's so much there, and it's all gone. I wish I had it. So that like if I could just recover a little bit of that, that would be nice. So some of that would be like if I rewrote. Well, one thing is there's a thing called the tracer, which I find on archive.org that I wrote for the Atari. And it was meant to be a disk editor, edit sectors, and like you could see the disassembly and stuff. And it had a disassembler in it and all kinds of other stuff in it, which there's but that version you can't find. The final version that I had was didn't have that much in it yet. But I was working on At the very end, I was even working on like a little mini language that you could write to modify sectors. And so you would type in commands and then it would be a whole script. And then you could run that script. It would like, basically do a little crack for you of an original disk. Um, so I had, but I never finished that. This whole bunch of code that I just like never finished. That's just all. So the thing is, I could easily recreate a lot of it, like not easily, but could go back and start over with my education on the Atari and do all that stuff and kind of recover those old neurons and see if that awakens things. I kind of like that's one of the reasons I kind of like going back to these early days is that it does reawaken a feeling in me. It reawakens memories of those days. It reawakens you know, neurons I haven't used in so long. So I started writing started rewriting one of the games that I had started back in the day, but this time in assembly. So I'll show you my progress on that soon as I'm working on it. Next time I'm working on it. And in general, I think I should, now that I'm using more remote agents, I can actually have OBS running while I'm doing stuff. So I'll try and do more sharing of my projects as I go and do a few more of these videos. With the release of Marlin coming out really soon, I'll probably have a stream about that. Because I'm using agents to, I'd used agents to help me parallelize the builds. And so I can do 4 or more builds simultaneously of all the configurations, which like saves so much time. Because there's all this, if you don't parallelize them, you've got all this unused compute that's just left on the table. But if you do parallelize them, then you have to like be careful not to overdo it because then you just have too much contention and it slows things down. But at some point, there's like a nice happy medium. I found about 4 of them. Gets it down to, instead of an hour and a half, it's like 20 minutes. Do all the builds. Okay, we're making progress. Again, boot init, byte exact. Good, we finally got there. You can see it had a lot of trial and. So what I would typically do is ask it, what's the issue with the trial and error? Can you improve the skill? You know, to avoid pitfalls, But there's one of the things I don't know that it does in skills is like note the errors it made and then write down notes to avoid those errors. Whenever possible, I try to ask it to write tools to do things that it's going to be doing again, rather than just write Python code in line. Interesting, I had YOLO mode on before, so it had to ask me for permission, but I think I must have turned that off. So it's surprising that it hasn't come along and asked me for permission to do some stuff. So where are we at here? We're still in the bash. I see. Oh, it's doing a commit. Oh, I see what it's doing. This is one of the things that Hermes does a lot now. Like uses the temp folder to make scripts and run them. I don't know if that was something I encouraged or if it's just part of the way Hermes is working now, but generally speaking, pretty cool. Okay, boot main chain complete. Wiki updated. Yeah, and one of the reasons that I am doing more focus with the agents on non-Marlin stuff is really so that I have a lot of targets, a lot of experiments, and a lot of experience using this stuff without putting it on Marlin. I'm putting it on things that I think are easier. There are easy aspects of Marlin. Like there's one thing I want to do, like just refactor all the strings, for example. Use the mstring class where possible. And it could go through and probably figure that kind of stuff out by looking for specific patterns of string usage and then just going, oh, I found this. Now I'll look for all of them. Okay, now I'll fix them. Oh, I found this. Let's look for all of them. Let's that kind of thing over and over until it finds that there are no more instances where strings are not using this class that safely wraps them. There we go. Yeah, one thing I might do is, let's see, cool. There you go. Done. Fully reconstituted. Boot main chain. Last big unverified entry path. What landed? Okay. Next standing item is room format. So now it needs to find the ICAA style from room data, Ice Age. I don't know why it decided ICAEA is like something to do with like that's just the name of Ice Age. Um, okay, cool. Very good. Make build, make verify. Everything I edited in 3 covered by the full suite. Okay, cool.